Over the next year and a half, I'm gonna conquer Ark Survival Ascendant by defeating all 7 canon story maps, and that includes Lost Colony, which is set to release this November. Now you may be asking yourself, why am I doing this to myself? Well, it's because I'm tired of getting bullied in my own comment section. People saying that I'm washed up or not in my prime anymore since I can't defeat alpha bosses like I used to. So over the next 1,000 in-game Ark days, I'm gonna defeat all 7 canon story maps on alpha difficulty to prove to myself and to the world that I am indeed him and I have not fallen off. I really have to redeem myself. I didn't even make it to the tech cave last time I played through the island. So now I've got a ton of work ahead of me, so I'm gonna spawn in on the island now. I chose South Zone 1 as my first spawn point, and I immediately skipped the cutscene because this time I am locked in. I'm here to defeat the alpha bosses, that is it. I got straight to work by running over to a cluster of bushes to gather a few bits of fiber.
Only got 1,000 days to defeat all 7 maps, and a year and a half, but we don't talk about that.
Now with some fiber acquired, I gave this nearby tree a few smacks for wood and thatch, and I then ran down to the beach to grab up a couple of rocks.
First pickaxe, let's do it.
I got some more wood from the trees before heading into the engram page to unlock the next set of engrams and farming up a hatchet.
Alright, since we're on the island and it's pretty much as vanilla as Ark gets, I think the first objective is definitely to tame a Perry. I just have to, dude. It's my channel brand, it's my channel theme, dude. Perry is Granty.
That being said, I also needed to defend myself somehow. So I crafted up a couple of spears and I started whacking away at another tree. And this is when the reason that I needed spears introduced itself.
Oh my god, get out of here. This is why I'm making spears. Not like I'm gonna be able to kill this thing though.
But I had to kill something for hide, so I made 6 more spears before heading out to find my first victim.
Moss shops? I'm not gonna waste my energy with that. I don't know that I can kill that for sure.
But dodos on the other hand... Oh, and the life throws weren't safe for me either.
I'm sorry, bro. It's nothing personal.
I also split some of the meat so it could spoil for narcotics in the future. I then farmed up a little bit more wood for the campfire, and while that was cooking, I continued my killing spree down the beach for more meat.
Snipe.
Going over to the other side of this little island that I'm on, I spotted the first culprit for taming.
A wild Perry and its child have been spotted. Level 130, okay. Very strong Perry.
I could definitely tame it, I just had to grind out a bunch of levels with cooking pots so that I could unlock trank arrows.
I am only level 7. That's tough. Stay there, Perry and Perry child. Don't go anywhere.
I was still 1 level off from unlocking cooking pots though, so I ran around the general area with my spears like a madman until I stumbled upon some free experience.
Alright, how bad is it if I kill this Perry to tame another Perry? Oh, it does have a child. Surely not that bad.
Dude, stop. Let me go.
Yeah, it's gonna fight me because it has a child, but it's in the lobby now, so.
Anyhow, I finally unlocked the cooking pots, meaning I could start the proper XP grind.
Okay, level 21, I think that's level for tranks. Yeah, and a bunch of important stuff.
So I unlocked said important stuff, which included hide armor that I can make to keep myself warm at night. I then also picked some fiber from bushes and then finally made the set.
Okay, at the end of day 1, the drip is not too bad. Not bad at all.
My first objective for day 2 was to get me a bow and some arrows. So I grabbed some more fiber and made one as well as a few arrows.
Alright, time to make these trank arrows. So that's foundation and a mortar and pencil.
I smacked up a couple of trees and made the foundation. I then ran over to a few rocks to gather the stone for the mortar and pestle. With those now crafted, I returned back to my campfire and placed them down to start the narcotic production. I had plenty of spoiled meat ready to be converted, however, I was still lacking on the actual narcoberry side. So I got back to work. Back at my little outpost, I turned a few of my arrows into trank arrows and then I made some bolas.
What level are you, Perry? Oh, you're the 130. Hey, you going to sleep.
With Perry now unconscious, I quickly grabbed some mejo berries and fed it.
Alright, now time to make this man or woman saddle.
I unlocked the engram and I already had all the materials needed to craft it, so I did. I then picked up my campfire, the mortar and pestle, and I waited for the parasaur to finish taming. And now I could finally give it its well-deserved name.
Perry. Alright, I've completed the whole challenge. This was all I set out to do.
Anywho, I put Perry to use straight away by farming a bit of narco berries. I then placed my mortar and pestle back down to cook up more narcotics as well.
I need to get some more hide, need more bowls and stuff.
That being said, I ran around to the other side of the island where I quickly came across some generous hide donators.
What?
Looking at the moss shops, it was only level 20, so I started putting it out of its misery as well. I smacked a tree a couple of times for the thatch, and I made some bolas and then arrows. Now, back at my little outpost, all the narcotics were done cooking, so I picked up my structures and hopped on the back of Perry.
Alrighty, I want to get myself a strong tame to defend myself like a Carno, but I also want to get metal to feed my addiction. I think I'm gonna wander across the map this way.
So I swam across the river to the other side, and I ventured inland to see what I could find, or what could find me.
Ooh. Chat, we might be cooked.
Thankfully, both of the raptors were garbage levels, so I quickly promoted them both to corpses. And then I continued my hike across the map. I came across a green drop in the jungle, so I of course had to investigate.
That means terrible drop.
Moving on from that, I soon got jumped by another couple of raptors, so I bowled both of them, but this time I didn't bother killing them. Instead, I pieced out to the other side of this little island, and that's where I attracted the attention of these little nuisances.
What? Brother, get away from me.
And I did come across another green drop in the jungle ahead, and this one had even more lemons for me, as well as a decent hatchet and a lit torch. No pun intended. More importantly, I shifted my attention to the metal node that was right in front of me.
No, this is the metal mountain. Oh my god, boys. This is the metal mountain, but where crystal?
I couldn't see the crystal anywhere around me, but I decided to stick around the area a bit and kit up. So I slapped down the thatch foundations that I had on me, and I started working towards making my first forge. With that bad boy now slapped down, I filled it up with the metal that I got, fired it up, and I farmed up a bit more. I also placed down my campfire, and I got some wood to light it.
Okay. Bad part about being up on a mountain, need water.
Not only that, but it was also really hot up here, even during the night, so I ran down to the beach to get a sip of water and cool off. But there, I also did notice a group of Meganors nearby, but before I could even hop on the back of Perry, we got attacked by them.
Well, I was gonna come back and kill you guys, but I'm not complaining.
I was getting pretty low on health though, so I crafted up a sleeping bag just in case.
Maybe I make some cloth armor here, because it does help you stay cooler.
And I'm just cool like that, so I replaced the hide set for now. And on the early morning of day 3, it was time to find out whether my genius plan of wearing cloth armor actually helped.
Alright, can I go back up to the mountain without overheating? Let's see. Oh.
I couldn't wait around here for too long though, as I still had a few simple objectives ahead of me, such as killing the Alpha Overseer.
Alright, we got the go ahead from the weather. I need more hide.
Surprisingly, I could now go up the hill and I wasn't even hot. I also came across a few more Meganoras, so I clapped them and got just enough chitin to make a Pteranodon saddle.
Oh, I can just afford a Pteranodon saddle. I just need to get some crystals so I can find one.
Back at my little outpost, I grabbed the metal ingots and I looked into making a smithy. I was only missing a bit of stone and wood, so I got the chopping. I placed the smithy down and then threw some resources into it. I wanted to make metal tools, but for those, I would actually need to get some more hide. So I ran into the woods where I soon came across a raptor, or 2.
Oh, no way, I fold. No, there's a third one.
I started running to the beach as I ran out of bolas, and I tried getting the raptor aggroed on this random trike, but that didn't quite go as planned. And to top things off, I jumped into the water that was also filled with piranhas.
No, Art can't do me like this.
Death number 1. I spawned back in the south zone too, and I then started making my way over back to my corpse.
Sweet, explore now, I'll take it.
Anyways, I made it back to my body, so I jumped in to get my stuff. Looking into making bolos, I was completely out of hide, so I dropped a few dilos and then made the bolos to keep me safe from those pesky raptors. I then returned back to my little outpost and I made a metal pickaxe so I could fuel my metal farming addiction more efficiently. I also chopped down a couple of trees for wood to keep my forges running while I went down to the beach for a sip of water. And coming back up, I spotted another explorer note, so I grabbed it and leveled up Perry's weight. Now, finally back at the outpost, I grabbed some more metal and I crafted myself a crossbow. I also restocked on arrows and bolas and farmed up a bit more metal for a hatchet, but I was missing hide once again. It would be a real shame if something made of hide would just appear right in front of me.
Huh, well, I do need hide.
I made the hatchet and placed down my mortar and pestle, and I cooked up a few narcotics. Now, looking into the engram page, I noticed I could unlock the Pteranodon saddle, so now I really had to find some crystal for a spyglass.
Maybe I make a raft, sail around the island, go up a mountain. I think that might have to be the move. Let's sail up north.
However, I was missing a bunch of resources to make said raft, so I started off by picking bushes for fiber, and then followed that up by hopping on Perry to go hunting. I ran down to the beach where I came across a raptor chasing and killing a parasaur, so I killed it, but I got swarmed by a group of compies. And while I was too busy dealing with those, 2 baby raptors started eating the corpses.
Then my hide, boys. Screw you guys.
I killed the rest of the troublemakers and harvested with other corpses that I could find. And heading down the beach, I noticed another raptor singled out from its group, so I turned that into hide as well. Now, the only thing I'm missing for the raft was the wood, so I dropped a few trees and then finally crafted it.
Think about it, give me a ton of XP. Explore note and raft? Didn't even realize that until now. I'll take it though.
It actually gave me 5 whole levels, so I placed the raft down as well and I started heading back up to camp. I may or may not have killed a mod shops as well and some meganoras while coming back too. Anyhow, finally I made it back up to camp and I started packing up. I grabbed all my structures and whatever metal that cooked while I was gone. I then picked up my foundations and made my way back down to the raft. And on day 4 I parked Perry on the raft and set sail.
Long trip ahead. It'll be worth it though. Hey man, how are you on my boat? Get off my boat.
I also slapped my campfire back down to keep some meat cooking while I traveled.
Trying to stay as close to shore as possible so I won't get attacked by a whale. But I also remember, I think on my last island 100 days, I was sailing around here and a Sarco attacked me. I've got to make sure to find a happy medium here. Alright, pretty close to this northern mountain. Let's set the raft up here, I think. Gotta make a trip up there and get crystal.
Before heading up there, I placed my mortar and pestle down and the sleeping bag that I've been carrying on me just to be safe. I then also farmed up a couple extra bolas and I finally started heading up to the top of the mountain.
Oh my god, what is that? Something just knocked down a tree. That sucks. I have to go this way.
Thankfully, it was just a wreck, so I snuck right by it. Now, going up the steep side of the mountain was rough. I kept getting stuck on these little rocks, and then I'd have to maneuver around them. And while I was doing that, I was too busy to notice that the whole Rex was chilling right in front of me.
Oh my god.
So I had to take a little bit of a detour, but I eventually made it up to the top.
Clutch foundation. Okay, we're here.
There were a couple of threats up top, like a saber and a raptor, but they were no match for my sneak mode. I farmed up a bit of crystal and then hopped on the back of Perry so I could descend down the mountain.
I don't want to push my luck, but this metal's looking at me. Let me make a spyglass.
I smacked up a tree, made the spyglass, and I also harvested the metal nodes. With that little side quest now completed, I could finally head back down. I carefully jumped down the rocks not to take too much fall damage, however that turned out to be the least of my concerns.
What is that? I don't know what just made. I'm trapped. It's a car.
Yeah, so I got myself into a bit of a sticky situation, and unfortunately there's nothing I can do to save Perry.
Perry, I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, and remember fall damage? Yeah, I got bit by the car sending me flying off a cliff.
We were trapped in by a wall, dude. Are you serious?
I spawned back in on my sleeping bag and I started heading back up there to try and get my stuff.
Lost Perry, boys. Can I get an F in the chat for Perry?
I managed to get back to my stuff and I unlocked the parachute engram so I could get down safely from here. So I smacked up a tree for thatch, got some fiber, and then finally made one parachute. I then perched myself on a little rock and kind of just walked off. And while I was slowly gliding back down to the ground, I laid my eyes on this beauty.
When one door closes, voice crack, another door opens. I'm about to snipe this dude out of the air. Are you kidding me?
I prepared my bolas, and when I had a clear shot of the Pteranodon, I threw one and knocked it out.
Not risking it. We're getting spike walls.
With the PT now fully encased in spikes, I wanted to find some sort of baby dino so I could tame the Pteranodon with prime meat.
You have a child? Does anybody have a child? Dodo, do you have a kid?
I may not have found any baby dinos, but I did come across a trilobite which gave me some more chitin.
Looks like I might be raw meat taming this thing, which kind of sucks.
So I returned back to the Pteranodon and fed it some meat and narcotics. I then looked into making a saddle in the meantime.
Bunch of fiber, bunch of hide.
I got all the fiber that I needed and then proceeded to do a little bit of killing for the hide.
Sorry, non-Perry.
On day 5, I had to refarm all the fiber as I somehow managed to drop it while I was sorting out my inventory. And I also spotted a piggy minding its own business, so I quickly converted that into hide. And it actually gave me just enough to make the Pteranodon saddle.
Perfect.
Now all I had to do was wait for the Pteranodon to actually tame, so I fed it some narcotics to keep it asleep.
Definitely gonna take this to find a new base location. I'm gonna set up a permanent base location from the get-go.
That being said, I also had to get rid of some excess weight, as the Pteranodon probably won't be able to carry me right now. I then just waited around for the PT until it finally tamed.
Sir, white and black on him at bones.
As expected, I was too heavy to fly properly, so I just have to get rid of a few things.
I just need to be able to fly faster than this to get an explorer nut to level this thing up.
I really didn't want to drop the crystal, but I had to. But now that I could fly properly, it was time to find me an explorer note.
There's one note.
I put a few levels in the way and stamina and continued flying towards another note that I knew of.
This is the note I'm looking for here. Man, it's nice to have a bird this good so early. Let's get like one more note. Sounds good to me.
While looking for said note, I noticed a yellow drop with a ring in the jungle up ahead. So I landed for the stamina before going to snatch the loot.
A lot of dangerous stuff. Let's be quick about this.
One of the metal structures that I got was actually a behemoth metal gate, which means I could demolish it for a ton of paste and of course metal. But I first had to find a more permanent base location, so I went around the map scouting for a potential spot. Coming across another green drop, I found a bunch of oil inside, which reminded me that I'm gonna need this for a fabricator. Also, how could a proud American such as myself say no to some free oil? Anyhow, I stopped by the green obelisk and I was actually considering building here since it was pretty secluded from danger. The only problem though with the green obelisk was the lack of space. I probably wouldn't be able to fit a whole Rex army here once I actually start breeding it, so the search for a spot continued.
This is looking like some prime real estate. Never built here before. Alright, you convinced me. It's got a good view too. What more can you ask for? I think I'll build on the cliff here so I can have great views from the base and just be more optimal. And the good news is there's Therazinos everywhere around here, and I'm gonna need some good ones to defeat an alpha dragon.
So with the base spot now settled, I could get back to the grind and actually build myself some sort of house to live in. I flew closer to the forest and I got to farming up some stone foundations. With the first 3 foundations made, I ran back up the cliff and I placed them down as close to the edge as possible. I also placed down my smithy and I got to demolishing all the metal structures that I found in that yellow drop. And lastly, the behemoth gate. Demolishing that gave me almost 2,000 metal ingots and a bunch of cementing paste as well.
Alrighty, let's spend some time setting up a little shack thing here. Get the base set up, you know, the basics.
With 6 more foundations made, I placed them down to make a simple 3x3.
I wanna build this unique. I'm just trying to think about how I want to do it, because I'm not the best builder, that's for sure.
A little bit of pondering later, I unlocked the wood structure variants and I started off by farming and crafting the walls. I also made a few ceilings and railings before the end of the day. On day 6, I placed said ceilings down to form a kind of balcony over the hill, and I also placed down my walls and my appliances.
Oh, can I make black armor with all this metal I have? Since I'm so rich on day 6? That's right, I'm flexing on you. I know if any of you watching this video tried this, you wouldn't have near the amount of wealth that I have.
The only resource I was missing to make the flax set was fiber, so I had to gather it manually. And yeah, all that talk about being rich, but I'm still here picking bushes for fiber by hand. Anyhow, with the armor set now made, I also repaired my hatchet so I could get back to work on my actual home. And I also made some stone ramps to make getting up and down easier from the house.
Okay, I'm trying to figure out how do I want to do this roof. I'm considering doing it in thatch, man. Wonder how that would look. I'm not too worried about the fences here. Maybe not thatch. Let's do wood. Thatch would look too weird.
I also decided to invest in a sickle, so I unlocked the engram for that, but I was once again missing the hide to actually craft one. So I flew down to the beach to both hydrate and look for something to kill, but I found this bad boy roaming the area.
Whoa, 150 Rex? Are you serious? That thing needs to stay alive. I need that.
But first, the hide. I found a low-level parasaur just existing, so I boiled it and tested out my journeyman torch on it. It wasn't crazy though, so I just domed the poor thing with my crossbow, taking it out of its misery. Now using that freshly acquired hide, I've made the sickle, and I then got to working on my house by first mowing down the bushes nearby. I then chopped down a few trees and crafted the wooden ceilings, ramps, and sloped walls.
I'm not gonna lie, I kind of cooked with this. This is heat. This is tough. Oh, I'm having even more ideas, dude. I'm cooking so incredibly hard right now, I believe.
But that could wait for now. Instead, I wanted to go back to taming. I made a few extra tranks and I farmed up a bed to avoid the mistakes that I've had in the past.
I just want to tame extra pteranodons to be safe, because, you know, I don't want to die while I'm out doing something important and then just not have a good flyer.
Also, that level 150 Rex was still out there teasing me.
Naughty, naughty, you teasing me, you naughty, naughty.
I definitely have to get my hands on that sooner or later, but for now, I just flew around the southern islands looking for pteranodons. And there wasn't a shortage of them at all, but there were really none actually worth taming.
Not having near as much luck finding pteranodons this time. Maybe I just go back, try and find a berry harvester to tame, maybe a Perry UV2, and then after I tame a berry harvester, we either go for the RG or that 150 Rex, just because it's not like I need it right now, but like I need to have it in the future. Can't let that thing slip away.
On my way back home, I stumbled into yet another yellow drop, but apart from the free gasoline, the rest of the loot was pretty mixed. dead. So I flew back to base and I looked around the general area to see what kind of berry farmers I could find. I continued looking for a tame on day 7, and after doing a little circle around the island, I settled for this level 75 trike.
Look, you like the tamest trike, being honest.
So I waited for some tranks to finish crafting before going out to shoot the trike.
I think it's torpor running. Yes, sir. I'm like that. All right, let's get some spikes up around this boy.
A few bushes, trees, and the dilo later, I had everything I needed to make a few spike walls, so I surrounded the trike to keep it safe. I then hopped on the back of Bones and I flew down to the river to hydrate. And while doing so, I attracted the attention of an alpha raptor, which I cannot afford leaving anywhere near my unconscious trike, so I had to lead it away. Now back at the sleepy trike, I made one more spike wall to fully seal it off from the outside world. I then picked some mejo berries from the bushes and fed the trike, and I also looked into making a saddle for it as well.
What do I need for a trike saddle?
I need a little bit of wood and a bunch of hide, so back to killing is where I went. Coming back to the trike, I noticed the juvenile one's dead body just laying next to my spikes, so I harvested it for hide. And after a couple of tree smacks, I had everything I needed to craft the trike saddle. And just in time, as the trike had also finished taming by now. So I saddled the bad boy up and whistled for Bones to follow me, and I waddled all the way back to base, where I then put the trike to good use by farming some narco berries. So I then split some meat in my inventory as well, but I had to go down to chill in the water for a little bit. This is because I'm actively melting in my armor due to the immense heat of the island right now. And no, not even taking my armor off helped at all. Anyways, a couple of minutes later, I flew back up to give the trike a name.
Bighorn. I don't know.
The raw meat was also yet to spoil, so I dipped my toes back into the water to keep me cool. Thankfully, by the time it all spoiled, the weather had cooled down a bit, so I wasn't getting burned alive anymore.
Keep farming some berries here. It's nice that it cooled down.
Bringing those back to the mortar and pestle, I can make a ton more narcotics. And while those crafted, I made some arrows as well, and I started turning them into tranks.
A ton of tranks, ton of narcotics. Actually, let me go on Dododex. Let's see how much it's gonna take to knock out this Rex. So it's gonna take like just about 100 to knock it out.
I made another crossbow just in case that I would need it, and one thing I for sure would need was a trap, and that consisted of 4 dino gates. But before going out to farm those, I wanted to make sure the Rex was actually still around.
First, let me make sure that this thing still exists, meaning that it's not dead. Yes, sir. And it's a male. That's just, I couldn't ask for anything better, man.
So with the Rex confirmed alive and healthy, I could get back into preparing everything to tame it. I then grabbed the Dino Gate engram and got the farming. With all 4 of the dino gates made early in the morning of day 8, I made the few extra arrows that I would need, and then turned them into tranks, and I was basically all ready to go out and cop this Rex. So I flew down to it and set my trap up near it, and I actually got its attention straight away. However, as it was about to get in the trap, a parasaur decided to distract it.
This parasaur is throwing.
So I had to help out the Rex by clapping the parasaur.
Come here, little bro. Should have made a bear trap, being honest. Whatever. No way. Man, I know you can fit in there.
Yeah, somehow the Rex was a bit too fat to fit into the trap, so I packed it up and I flew back to base to make the bear trap. Coming back down to the beach, I reassembled my trap and placed down the bear trap in the middle. I then waited for the Rex to finish its tomfoolery with the trikes. I eventually got its attention, so I tried leading it in once again, but it was still too fat to fit somehow.
Man, I know you can fit in there. Got a little idea. Yeah, see?
With the Rex finally trapped, I could finally start knocking it out, after taking care of some random bystander, that is.
Back to the lobby. Sweet. Watch it be terrible. I honestly don't know if those are good or not.
Anyways, it was time to find some food for this guy. I did remember seeing an alpha raptor earlier while I was taming that trike, so hopefully I could find that and get a ton of prime meat from it.
These are alpha boosted. Found it. Level 50. It's easily killable. I think there's an explorer node over here too, isn't there?
While flying around looking for it, I stumbled across a mama Rex with their babies, and those would definitely be easier to take down. So I loaded up my crossbow and I committed some unspeakable crimes. But in the end, I got all the prime meat that I'd ever need, so I flew back to the sleeping Rex and fed it. That baby Rex sacrifice was done in the name of progress.
Alright, so this is gonna take a little bit to tame. I do want to try and kill that alpha raptor, get a note, and then kill it, and that'll put me past level 74, I'm pretty sure, and then I can craft a Rex saddle.
That being said, I started working on making a little trap for the alpha raptor so I could kill it with ease. With a simple 1x1 now crafted up, I flew back down to the alpha raptor. I then constructed the trap nearby, but I had to wait for it to kill a master Oogway before I could get to it. Once I had the raptor's attention, I led it into the trap, but there was a couple of flaws with this design.
Oh wait, I forgot I can damage it. Oh wait, did it just run through? Oh, I didn't think that through, did I? Should just put up walls. What am I doing?
Honestly, at this point, finding 2 Explorer notes or killing a Spino instead of the Alpha Raptor would be easier. So I flew around the area looking for a note. I also barely noticed that my health was actually getting critically low from the heat.
Ooh, it's hot.
So I flew down to the closest body of water for a bit to cool off. After setting back out on the Explorer note journey, I flew towards the red obelisk where I knew of a bunch of notes. And sure enough, I found the first couple of notes near one another, and that put me up to level 74, meaning I can now unlock and make the Rex's saddle. So I landed back at base and looked into making the saddle. However, I was still missing a decent amount of hide. But for now, I just flew down to see the Rex's stats.
I don't think this is very good. I'm being honest. 10.5k health, 324 melee.
Anyways, I had the Rex follow me around and kill things or hide, as that's probably the quickest way I could actually make a saddle for it.
Oh, that choice, bro. I need hide.
I continued killing things on the beach on day 9, and I actually ran right into the Alpha Raptor, so I let my Rex do its thing. Soon after that, I actually came across another Alpha Raptor.
Holy Alpha Raptors, man.
There was also a Spino right next to it, but I believed in my Rex, so I sent it in the battle. What I didn't expect though is for my Rex to lose a bunch of its health fighting the Spino though. Thankfully, we took both of them down with a little bit of assistance from Bones. And just when I thought the fight was over, another Rex pulled up on us, but it was no match for my Rex. Looking at its inventory, I found a pretty decent Mastercraft metal hatchet dropped by the Alpha Raptor. Anyhow, I got all the hide that I needed, and I leveled up my Rex in the process, so I could finally bring it back home. Transferring all the hide into my smithy, I made the Rex a saddle and then slapped it on my Rex.
Alright, now that I got this tamed, which is something I couldn't really pass up on, I think it's now time to just go out and tame an RG. I'm just gonna need one, man. They're just too useful.
I still had plenty of trank arrows and narcotics left over, so I didn't have to do a bunch more preparing either. But I did craft up a few extra tranks and farmed a humble amount of narco berries, and then flew back out to repair and pick up the trap that I used for the Alpha Raptor. I made one stone ceiling, and I was now basically ready to go out and tame an RG, so I headed out to the mountains in the middle of the map.
Double drop with a ring, don't mind if I do. Ooh.
Can't say no to a goated chitin chest piece and some gunpowder though. And even better than that, there's a level 135 RG that I found just beneath the hill.
Oh, perfect. Okay, let's try and find this safe spot to knock this thing out.
This little ledge poking out from the volcano should work just fine, given that it was a bit far away from the RG though.
Hope that it can fit in here, dude. Surely it can.
Well, only one way to find out, so I flew back down to get the RG's attention. And once I was close enough to my trap, I actually remembered that I had to use a double door frame for the backside, so I quickly hopped off to swap that out. On my first attempt, the RG flew straight above the trap, which is exactly why I was a bit hesitant about this design. But on my second try, it actually went in, meaning it was possible to trap the RG this way.
Nope. It's gonna work.
The RG did fly right out of it, but that doesn't mean I can't get it trapped. A couple of attempts later, I finally managed to place the wall down behind it, securing the RG.
There we go. Got it. Sweet.
Once it was knocked out, I flew down to find a lower level RG that I could kill for prime meat, and this level 40 should work just fine. It did only give me 2 pieces of prime though, so I would have to take down another. But luckily, I spotted one beefing with an Alpha Raptor, and it was getting pretty low on health, so I decided to swoop in and steal the Raptor's kill. I then brought all the prime meat over to my sleeping RG, fed it, and I waited until the end of the day. It woke up on day 10, so I had a quick look at its stats.
Holy health pool, bro. Terrible weight. I think I just gotta name it Meatball for the amount of health that it has.
Anyways, it's now time to bring Meatball all the way back home. And this is a journey that I'm really not excited about due to how slow RGs actually are. But about the halfway point, stopping by one of the mountains, I actually came across a big group of Ankies.
Holy Ankies, dude.
And one of them was a level 115, but it was extremely bloody, so I can't tame that right now. Ankies aside, I made it back home with the RG, so I unlocked the saddle engram and grabbed all the necessary resources and farmed up a bit of hide and finally made one.
Alright, let's go level this guy.
I then flew all the way back up north where I knew I could find a few more Explorer notes, and I leveled up Meatball's stamina just a little bit and then put the rest into weight. I also came across a Spino on the beach, and that's just perfect timing. What wasn't perfect though was the fact that this little pesky Carno literally snatched the kill from me, giving me off none of that XP.
Oh, it took the kill from me. Oh my god, what is your problem? Screw you, dude.
And to rub some salt in the wound, it also healed off the Raptor's corpse just as it was about to die.
Dude,
I still had plenty of XP boost left over though, so I flew down to this river where I eventually came across a low level Rex that was easy for a kill.
Gonna kill it. Yes.
After killing that, I landed on this little hill to regain stamina, and I actually stumbled right into another explorer node there. With enough levels now acquired, I started heading back home just to fly straight into another Alpha Raptor. I of course didn't want to pass up on such a free XP opportunity though, so I packed it up and got an extra 11 levels for Meatball.
Yeah, dude, I've done a ton of leveling on this thing, and its weight is still pretty mid, so it was just terrible weight to start with.
Back at base, I spotted a whole Alpha Carno chilling right under my base, so I couldn't let that slide. So I started killing the big red sausage, but due to its massive health pool and low melee of my RG, the fight actually continued into day 11. Well, I say the fight, but it was actually just me hovering above the Carno, clawing it from above. However, I actually ran into a slight issue.
No, I spent so long trying to kill that.
I quickly logged back in, and thankfully I appeared just beneath my RG while still in combat, so I quickly hopped on it to save myself.
Oh no, the Explorer node's gone. That's so stupid.
So I spent a solid minute playing left click simulator, but I wasn't having it with my XP boost gone, so I flew back off to try and find another Explorer node.
Let me get an Explorer node before I kill this.
Luckily, I stumbled into one really quickly though, so I picked it up and I flew back to finish killing off this Carno. And after a couple of solid minutes, the Carno finally folded, but I'd say the kill was well worth it as I got a ton of levels from it. But more importantly, I got this ascended piece of technology.
Oh, that was so worth it. Look at those tools that I got.
Anywho, I flew back home to sort out my stuff, and after turning around, I spotted a little piggy wandering around my property. And you guys already know how I deal with trespassers. I also noticed my Rex had been holding on to a decent amount of spoiled meat by now, so I grabbed all of that and threw that into my mortar and pestle for more narcotics. And since my campfire was also sitting there dormant, I quickly flew over to the nearby forest and grabbed a little bit of wood and relit it with some meat inside.
Glad I got this new crossbow. I kind of want to keep taming. Let's go try and find. Okay, never mind. Before that, let's finish working on this because I got something that I like.
Basically, I still had this idea in mind on how I wanted to finish my base, and with the help of Meatball and these new tools that I got, farming up resources should happen much quicker. So now it's time to actually get to work on that. I placed 3 stone foundations on the side of my house, and I went back up to the woods to farm up a few walls as well. You guys can kind of see what I'm going for here, right? Hold up, let me cook some more.
Okay, chat, did I not cook on this? I think this looks pretty cool, and I'm gonna expand on this, make it bigger.
It's definitely much cooler than just having a boring square house, and I think my construction skills are improving slowly but surely. Anyways, it was time to get back on track with progress. My next little side quest would be expand my smelting forest by farming up a few extra forges. So now, a few rocks and a few trees later, I had 3 extra forges made, so I lined those up next to my first one. But I didn't have the metal to actually distribute into them yet, so for the time being, I made one more trip to the forest and gathered up a bunch of wood so I'd have them ready and on standby to cook once I actually went out to farm that metal. Back at base, I parked inside and started transferring all the wood, but I first had to practice a little bit of dark magic just to make sure that I still had it in me.
I think after so long they would fix this.
Once my head got unstuck from the ceiling, I actually could distribute all the wood into my forges. Now that those are ready for smelting, I had to go out and actually get the metal.
Do I go out and try to tame an Anki first? That might be the move, being honest. And then we come back, farm up a ton of metal, and get that cooking. Yeah, I'm still in love with what I made right here, dude. This looks sick. I don't know about y'all. And look at this. Look at my view, bro. Y'all wish y'all had a view like this. I'm just too good of a builder. What can I say?
Anyhow, back to getting that Anki. Now, I wasn't about to start circling the map on my very slow RG. Instead, what I would actually do is find an Anki worth taming with my Pteranodon and then come back for a Meatball once it's actually asleep and I'm taming. So I collected up a few Mayho berries with my trike and then headed out. My first stop was at the mountain in the middle of the redwoods, as I do remember seeing a bunch of Ankis here, and that also included that level 115, but that was super bloody.
This is 115.
I got slightly distracted by a purple drop just down the hill, but opening it actually proved to be worthwhile as I got some metal and a pair of ghillie leggings from it. There was also another Pteranodon saddle blueprint, but I most likely wouldn't craft that anytime soon, if ever.
Honestly, I might just tame that 115 just to be safe. There seems to be a ton of Ankis on this mountain though. Let me just run through all of them just to make sure.
I flew around for a bit, but then I actually found the 115, so I decided to just go for that and not waste any more time with the other ones, because for some reason it magically healed itself. So I parked Bones up on the mountain a bit and I started shooting at the Anki. And it went to sleep pretty quickly thanks to the insane crossbow of mine. So I hopped back on my Pteranodon to look around and try and find some hide, as I wanted to surround the Anki and spikes. And this level 40 Anki would just have to do as our donator for hide. A few trees later, I made 5 spike walls and I started placing them around the sleepy fella, and I also fed it before closing it off. Now, for some reason, this other wild Anki couldn't help itself but walk straight into my spikes, so I had to put it down. Anyhow, it's now time to fly back home and get Meatball. And thanks to my precise calculations and the simple fact that I am him, I managed to land on the edge of my base perfectly just before running out of stamina.
No way. Oh, sweet.
I cleared my inventory out a bit and put on ghillie to keep myself cool.
Alright, now let's see what I need for the saddle for it. And I'd like to just tame and go out on a metal run instantly, just some hide.
None of my tames had any hide on them, unfortunately though, so I had to go on a little killing spree with my Rex.
Okay, before I set out to actually pick up the Anki and then do a metal run, I think it's about time I make some storage boxes for the base here.
That being said, I chopped down a few more trees and made 4 storage boxes. I didn't have much space to work with though, so I had to pick up my campfire and my bed to make space for the boxes. I also had a cool idea of how I'd incorporate one of the side rooms that I made earlier.
Make this like a little bedroom area. Wait, look at the bedroom, boys. Got it nice, hidden, tucked away.
And I put the campfire in the other corner, and honestly, it's a pretty cozy little upgrade, and let me know what you guys think. Anyways, it's time to head out on Meatball to retrieve my Anki, and by the time I arrived, it was about 85% done taming, so I sat with it until it woke up. And once it did, I had to give it a cool name.
Think the Ank. That actually doesn't have terrible melee for how low level it is.
So with Hank the Ank now saddled up, I could get right back to farming and fulfilling my severe metal addiction.
Yeah, I'm gonna fly over to the volcano. These metal nodes are just too like dispersed. It's annoying to farm them. You gotta keep popping on and off.
So I made the journey over to the top of the volcano where the nodes were all a little bit closer to one another, making it just easier to farm.
Man, it's so annoying when I'm like farming or really at any just high elevation in Ark and then a cloud spawns out of nowhere. Guess what? I can't see.
While farming away, I noticed a couple of gigas inside the volcano, and one of which was actually taking a hot bath, you could say.
What? Hold up, this thing's gonna die. Let me leave this other one in, and then I'm gonna cop the 2 gigahertz I need for the alpha dragon fight, man.
Unfortunately, what ended up happening though is that the second giga actually ate the first giga's body, meaning the bag was now somewhere in that lava. But I still got the other one to burn as well, so I secured one of the hearts at least.
Oh, the bag's definitely in the lava. Whatever, I got 1 gigaheart. That's still nice.
Anyways, I flew over to the other mountain near the volcano and I farmed up a bunch more metal over there. Then once I made it to the top of the hill, I already had plenty of metal farmed up and I was slowly dying to the cold, so I decided to peace out and return back home. And on my way back, I spotted a yellow drop, so of course had to check it out. And it also turned out to have a ring, and the loot inside was really good.
Oh, crazy pool.
Definitely worth the little detour. When I made it back to base, I dropped off Hank on my balcony. Well, almost.
Oh! Dropped it right on a Rex. My bad, Hank.
Once he was up safe and sound, I transferred all my metal into my forges and then lit them up. I also flew over to farm a bit more wood to keep them burning, as I had a lot of metal in each forge.
Okay, now that I got that, I think it's time we tame a Dodic, and then I want to build a giant wall with spikes and pillars and all that, making my peninsula type thing fully secure, and then we can I'll feel safe to have more dinos and all that, because there's Rexes everywhere, man. Even Theries, dude, if they walk up and get too close, if it's a high level, I might be cooked.
I basically had to wall off the whole side of the little hill where the wild dinos could get up to me. And farming all the stone for a bunch of gates by hand was just not optimal anymore, which is exactly why I want to go out and get me a Dodic. So I flew over to the top right side of the map and I began surveying the area for the little stone balls. Pause.
Forgot how hard it is to find a Dodic when they're so small.
That's what she said.
I continued searching into day 14, but honestly, I was having a really hard time actually finding one.
I haven't seen a single Dodic, man. Maybe I'm not getting a Dodic because I can't find one.
So instead, I resorted to gambling.
Yellow drop with a ring? Okay, you got me. I don't want to look for a Dodic anymore, dude. I'm tired of this.
I mean, it wasn't really the best of drops, but it still had potential. And those Mastercraft Ryan gauntlets weren't actually too bad. Anywho, I started heading back towards home, and while flying through the redwoods, I had to look around the central mountain again.
Holy Yankees, man. Can't find a singular Doedicarus, though.
Something in me was telling me to keep looking though. I was determined to find at least one Doedic somewhere. So I flew back down to the mountains in the middle of the map, but the longer I looked, the more I started to believe that Doedics had gone completely extinct on this island.
Yeah, man. Doedics don't exist, dude. I'm going somewhere else. I'm going back home. I'll do something else is what I mean.
Yeah, during that whole search, I could not spot a single Doedic, not even a low level. So I made my way back to base with defeat in my heart, but I didn't want to give up on taming completely. Instead, I wanted to find me a high level theory, as I need one for both farming resources and eventually a breeding line for the dragon boss fight. That being said, I grabbed up my stone structures and I went out to farm up the rest of the trap. With the trap crafted, I loaded up my crossbow and hopped on the back of Bones to go around and scout the surrounding area a little bit. There were definitely plenty of theories to choose from, it's just that none of them were really worth taming. I also checked out a few Rexes, but those were just as bad. I guess my luck for finding high levels had run out once that 150 Rex appeared right below my base.
Might just have to tame a bad theory for now, just to use for farming purposes, and I can spend the time trying to find a higher level later on.
I searched for a little bit longer, but without finding any good looking theories, I did come across this trio of alpha raptors, which was a pretty rare sighting though.
Yeah, it looks like I'm just taming a mid theory right now. I can't be bothered to look for any more dinos. That's all I've been doing today.
So as day 15 rolled around, I stumbled into this level 85, which wasn't too bad for just a normal farming theory. So I slabbed down the 4 foundations and walls around 3 of the sides, leaving one open for the theory, and then I flew over to get its attention.
Perfect. Sweet.
With the tickle chicken now asleep, I made my way back home to hop on my trike and farm up a few mejo berries and narco berries real quick. I then queued up a bunch of narcotics to craft before going back out to the theory to feed it. Since theories do wake up kinda fast, I had to keep an eye on its torpor. So I kept feeding it more narcotics to keep it snoozing, and I then came back to base to farm even more berries.
And I also forgot how long these things take to actually tame. This thing's level 85 and it's taking a century. Good thing it's close to base though. I can babysit it. In the meantime, let's get it a saddle and then start farming up a bunch of stone foundations to get a base expansion going.
I emptied my RD's inventory into the smithy and then got to farming. With around 8 foundations crafted, I flew back to kinda look at my base and consider my options.
I'm just trying to think about how I want to do this.
And once I had a rough idea, I got to work. I also noticed that the theory had dropped more than half its torpor by now, so I came over to force feed it some more narcotics. Then back at base, I grabbed my foundations and got to cooking. I wanted to build a kind of hexagon looking shaped platform so I could have other structures branching off of it into different directions. So I farmed up 9 triangle foundations and I started building. I also realized pretty quickly that I need much more than just 9 triangle foundations, so back to farming it was. Also, Bones had decided to go on a little walk by himself for some reason.
Where's my Pteranodon?
And honestly, I don't even blame him. I'd have to clear my head too after flying around the whole map several times looking for good dinos to tame. That will basically make anybody go insane.
How is he down there?
I hopped on the back of him and flew over to feed the theory once again. And back at base, I continued grinding for a bit until the theory was close to waking up.
Forgot to make it a saddle. Wood and fiber, easy.
With that crafted, it was time to go get my theory, but what I didn't expect is to spot a level 135 female Rex just below my base.
What?
So that turns my plans 180 degrees around. I rushed back home to grab my dino gates, and I made another bear trap and then flew down to construct it. With the trap in place, I gave the Rex a bit of a love tap, making it follow me into the gates.
Yes, sir.
And now that I had that secured, I could retrieve my theory. I actually left the saddle at home, so I picked up the trap and had the theory follow me all the way back up there. And for some reason, this random pego thought it would be a good idea to throw hands with a chicken 20 times its size. And yeah, it didn't end well for the pego. I crafted a few extra tranks on day 16 before going down to get that Rex knocked out.
This is actually so clutch finding this, man. The island's honestly blessing me right now. I guess, let's not talk about finding a Doedic or a high level theory though.
But getting a breeding pair of high levels on day 16 sounded good to me, so it was time to send her to sleep. And if you think my luck has now been drained completely, I'd like you to think again.
Who are you, bro? What?
A whole 145 female just appeared right behind me while I was tranking the 135 out. Now, I had to get both of them tamed, so I finished knocking out the 135 and flew back up to base to get another bear trap crafted. I could then just pick up my current dino gates and reuse them on the 145, so that's exactly what I did, after making new trank arrows, that is. Anyways, I flew back down and quickly picked up my gates while also checking on the 135 Rex's stats.
Whoa, definitely taming that 145. These stats are not looking good.
So I rebuilt the trap just under my base and I got the other Rex's attention once again.
Oh, it has a child. Crazy.
Mama Rex had a bit of trouble getting into the bear trap though, so I moved one of the gates outward, allowing the Rex to finally get stuck. And just like that, I had it trapped and I could get the shooting, while her child sadly watched.
Asleep. Oh my god, this one is worse. Gives me 2 super high level females and they both suck. That's Arc for you. Whatever.
I guess I'm still yet to see their stats though after they're tamed, so there was still a small chance at least one of them would turn out good. Good enough, that is, as they're definitely not going to be great with those stats. Anyhow, I wanted to get some prime meat for them, so I hopped on the back of my Rex and went around to look to see what I could find.
Bad day to be a parasaur child.
With all that prime meat now in my possession, I could now feed both Rexes.
Alright, well those finish up taming. Let's keep working on this base expansion here.
I still really wish I had a Dodic to farm stone about now, but they were basically non-existent, so I had to go back out into the woods and do a little bit of manual labor myself. After placing all those ceilings down, I returned back to farm more wood, and while I still had my guard down, I heard something through the foliage ahead of me.
Oh my god!
I've honestly never gotten jump scared this hard in Ark.
Dude, that scared the crap out of me.
I also hopped on Meatball to kill the Gigantoraptor. I then crafted all the remaining triangle foundations to complete the central platform. With that now complete, I could go down and check on the first female Rex. And our health actually turned out to be pretty garbage, just as I anticipated, but the melee was actually a bit better on the other hand.
This melee's pretty good. Okay.
So I named her after her stats, and I also came across to check on the other Rex, as it also had finished taming by now.
Oh, hold up. This one, since I tamed it, can I claim its kid? Yes. Come here.
Anyways, I checked the other Rex's stats and it turned out to be pretty garbage overall. The health went up quite a bit, but it still wasn't as good as my male. And the melee, you might be asking, yeah, let's not even talk about that. Yeah, I gave that Rex a very fitting name for being such a waste of trank arrows. I then picked up all my gates and brought the new Rexes home so I can continue my little base expansion. I still had some foundations left over, so I used those to make a second little walkway thing that would eventually lead into another building of sorts. Now going back to farming some wood, I've realized I've been doing it all wrong for a solid minute.
Why am I still farming wood by hand when I have a theory?
So after placing a few more foundations down, I actually hopped on the back of my theory to farm wood the proper way. And in the matter of seconds, I already have plenty of walls made. This would eventually serve as my industrial area where I'd have my fabricator, chemistry bench, and other stuff like that. But that is for later when I can actually get my hands on them. Now, there's still one thing I've been yearning for though, and that is a Dodic. Farming all the stone by hand was really draining, so I decided to craft up a few more arrows. I then also picked up the wooden walls that I just placed down to move them back a foundation. And just a small detail like that can make the whole thing look a lot better once it's finally done. I made a bunch of trank arrows on day 17 and headed back out to look for a Dodic once again. And not long into the search, I actually spotted the first one just wandering about under one of the hills. Even though it was a garbage level, at least I know that they're actually spawning in now.
There's a Dodic that spawned, but say likely it sucks.
And it wasn't the only level 15 I came across either.
Oh, 2 level 15s? Those aren't even worth taming, man.
But the art gods finally decided to bless me and a level 135 appeared right in my spyglass.
I guess 2 wrongs make a right.
I didn't have a trap for it, but it's not like I need one, as the terrain here was a bit rough for taming, so I decided to hit the Dodic with my Pteranodon and have it follow me down towards the ruins.
Why do I hear a Carno?
I didn't want to risk getting jumped by said Carno, so I parked my Pteranodon and started knocking out the Dodic right there and then. It was getting a bit bloody from all the arrows that I shot into it, but thankfully I knocked it out in time. I had some spikes and mayho berries back at base, so I hopped on the back of my Pteranodon, and before I could take off, I noticed the Carno has been lurking in the area.
Oh my god, Mesh Carno, that's why I heard one. I think I found that, man. Who knows if that could have gotten my Dodic or not.
After getting rid of it, I proceeded to fly across the map back to base, where I then grabbed the mayho berries and spikes and then flew straight back. That is until I realized that I actually had to return with Meatball instead so I could actually carry the Dodic home. So I parked my Pteranodon back at base and then hopped on the RG. Now, once I was back at the mountain, I almost flew right into the car that ended poor Perry's existence.
Oh my god.
Anyhow, I got back to the Dodic and it was actually sitting just below the mesh, meaning that I couldn't feed it. So I used a bit of sorcery that I've been practicing to look underground and open the Dodic's inventory and then feed it.
Alright, honestly, since I'm out here, I'm just gonna sit here and wait with it.
And it actually took a hot minute for this Dodic to tame up, but once it did, I gave it a very fitting name.
Oh,
And I could also just pick it up straight through the mesh with my RG, so I didn't have to use my powers anymore this time. And Ball was just excited to join me on the quest as I was. I landed on the ground for some stamina, and he just got the farming.
I was already getting to it. Doesn't even have a saddle.
So I continued flying back towards home while also farming up a few rocks. Now finally back at base, I unlocked the saddle, crafted one up, and slapped it on Ball.
Let's farm a bunch of stone with this dude.
I had now amassed a pretty decent amount of stone, so I dropped the Ball off and I went out to farm a few trees with my theory as well. And once back, I grabbed some stone and I crafted up a bunch of foundations to expand upon my soon-to-be industrial workshop. Going back out to get more wood, I spotted a wild chicken attempting to trespass onto my property.
Hey, bold move pulling up here being a level 5.
Anyways, I farmed a few trees with the Theria and then I got to dropping them with my pickaxe as I also needed a bunch of thatch. I then made a few more foundations and ceilings which I placed down on the new platform. I wanted it to go all the way back to the edge of the hill as the industrial structures that I plan on having tend to take up a lot of space, especially the industrial forge.
Yeah, 6 ceilings and I can finish the platform. It's not bad.
I picked up Ball and farmed up a couple more rocks. I then grabbed the wood and thatch and I made the last 6 ceilings. I picked up the 2 corner pieces to add a bit of shape to the whole thing and I placed down a few wooden walls that I had laying around. Now all I had to do is finish farming the rest of the walls and ceilings. I wanted to go for a similar design that I have on my main house using the ramps at the entrance. On day 19, I realized I made a fatal mistake while building the backside of my house.
Oh, I think I messed up. We gotta go bald. Built it one too short, but I'm not tearing this down, man.
Yeah, instead of picking up the whole backside and moving it, I just grabbed the corner foundations and the ceilings to match the front and I continued construction at the top. Finally, after a while of just farming and building, I finished the construction of the industrial workshop.
Alright, so this will be like my industrial place.
There were still a few missing details here and there like the railings out back, but I placed those down as well. Now lastly, I crafted stone walls to place down under the ceilings that acted as foundations, and those were both on the central platform and the new workshop. And now I also gotta look out after myself after such a long grinding session. I threw some meat onto my campfire to cook and I flew down to hydrate before getting ready to admire my new build. I don't know about you guys, but I think I definitely cooked with this base design. Now one more thing I have to fix was this annoying patch of grass just in front of my base. It was really bugging me, so to fix it, I placed a couple of rows of foundations and stairs over it. Now, if you're thinking I'm done with building, you're wrong. Well, not entirely, but still. I crafted up a bunch of wooden railings and stairs that I placed down around the central platform and around the edges as a finishing touch.
Alright, I'm digging this. Looking pretty tough, I'm not gonna lie. Alright, now that I got this set up, I'll probably put my hatching area down there at some point. So I think it's time to get ourselves a fabricator.
The only thing I was actually missing to make one was spark powder, so I unlocked the engram and made some. And once that was done crafting, I crafted the fabricator and slapped it down in the corner of the industrial workshop. Now the next structure on the agenda was a generator. I knew I had some gas laying around somewhere, so I grabbed it along with the metal and paste as I still had a whole stockpile of it.
Probably don't have any pearls, being honest. I have to fly to Narnia to get those. Most definitely will.
But before heading out to Narnia though, I had to refuel my forges as they still had a ton of raw metal in them, and they've kinda all ran out of wood by now. So after refueling those, I was basically ready to go out and get some pearls.
Alright, let's go. Oh, yeah, I got scuba. Let's go. Let's go try and get some pearls that I know I can get pretty easily. Problem is, they're on the complete other side of the map.
I arrived at the spot where I usually collect pearls and pulled out my crossbow to do a little bit of pest control as the river was absolutely swarming with piranhas. And now once those were taken care of, I could fill my pockets with these pearls. I collected a few extra pearls on day 20 and then headed back home. Halfway through the journey back though, I spotted a yellow drop with a ring coming down, so I stopped by to check it out once it actually landed.
Not very good.
And I did see 2 more yellow drops in the distance, but considering how bad this one was, I just ignored them and flew all the way back home. And once there, I queued up a bunch of electronics to craft and I unlocked the air conditioner engram as well.
Bet. Let's make a generator and power everything that will be in here. Alright, I think next I want to try and tame a Coolio, but before I want to do that, I want to make cryopods to make my life easier, and I'm also gonna need a cryo fridge.
I had pretty much everything I needed in my smithy as well. I made 7 electronics for the cryo fridge, and I flew out to the green obelisk on Meatball. There, I made the fridge, but I could only craft 4 cryopods as I was missing crystal. But 4 would work for now though, so I grabbed everything and returned back to base and slapped the cryo fridge down next to my generator. Now, with that little side quest completed, I could start working towards the Thyla. I grabbed up a bunch of resources, and I made a few foundations as I already had everything else crafted that I would need. I then stocked up on tranks and grabbed some cooked meat and headed out into the redwoods. While flying through, I landed by a blue drop with the ring, and I got a decent fur chest piece from it that might just come in handy when I have to venture into the ice caves. Anyhow, back to Thylas though. Finding one of these tree kitties is actually not that difficult. All you have to do is kind of fly around, and eventually one of them will just...
Oh my god, it found me.
Now, it's important to stay calm during a situation like this. If the Thyla is a low level, you can pull out your hatchet and do the following. However, if the Thyla happens to be a high level, like a 145, the odds might not be in your favor as much. Anyways, I hopped back on bones, and I continued the hunt for a good Thyla all the way into day 21. I found this level 40 chilling a bit too close to the ground, and yeah, I'm not sure what it was trying to catch. But anyways, I spun it off with my Pteranodon, and I tried to kill it, but it pulled a Houdini on me and vanished in the thin air. Anywho, the next Thyla I spotted was a level 20, so I knocked it off the tree in a similar fashion, and this one I actually killed. And I was also making sure to collect their claws as tributes that I would need for upcoming bosses. I then proceeded to fly around the whole redwoods for a while, but I couldn't see any new Thyla spawning in, so I decided to dip for now and go do something else instead.
You know what would be a Chad move? Go straight for an indie forge.
I unlocked the engram, and I looked into the fabricator to see exactly what I would need to get one.
Okay, I can get the polymer and the oil out in the snow, cementing paste. Should I fly around looking for taxpayers? And then the crystal's easy. And then I should have the metal. Definitely should have the metal. Oh yeah, I have the metal to afford one.
But then a whole Rex appeared out of nowhere and started munching on my teams, reminding me that I still need to put up some defenses.
I really do need to set up a wall, man. That's the last thing I feel like doing right now, though, after all the building I just did.
I honestly couldn't be bothered to set up the wall right now, though, as I was gonna stick to the original plan of going out to the snow and getting oil like the true American that I am. I also had to get some polymer from the local penguins, so I made a few clubs before mentally preparing for the long flight ahead.
Gonna do it on my RG as well. Yeah, that's the one tough part about living here. Base spot's super cool, but it is so far from everything.
After that long and tedious flight, I finally arrived at the iceberg so I could get to satisfying my basic human needs. And once I had a sufficient amount of this fine substance called oil, I started heading back home. But on day 22, I did a complete 180 as I actually forgot to get the polymer.
Forgot to get polymer, dude. You serious?
And it's a good thing I remembered to get it now and not when I was all the way back at base, since that would have been a different kind of pain. Now that being said, I returned to the snowy hills where I came across a yellow drop that actually had some polymer for me.
Whoa, clutch.
But it was still nowhere near enough for a whole indie forge, so I flew through the forest in search of penguins, and I found a small group of them shortly after that, so I prepared my club and loaded on my crossbow and then got to work. This wild RG also wanted a piece of me though, so I introduced it into my ascended piece of technology.
This crossbow's insane.
Anyways, I continued to search for another group of penguins when I spotted a saber had already beat me to it.
Oh, I will save you, penguins.
Save you from the saber, that is. Unfortunately, I couldn't save them from myself and the needs of the almighty god known as progress. While cleaning out another gang of penguins, I noticed a yellow drop coming down just beside me, but I couldn't really get the loot due to this happening. Yeah, for some reason the drop landed midair and just broke completely. So of course I took my anger out on a few more penguins, but their suffering soon ended as I gathered enough polymer to make the industrial forge.
Got the polymer, got the oil. Let's go back.
Now, it was me who had to suffer through the journey of flying all the way back to base across the map on this RG. And I did also stop by the volcano to farm up the little bit of crystal that I needed. Now, the last resource that I have to acquire is cementing paste. But before going out to get that, I made it back home and transferred all the materials that I just got into the fabricator to see if I really got everything that I needed.
Okay, now I just need the paste. Let's try and find some taxpayers.
I hopped on bones and flew out to scout the rivers around the southern islands, and sure enough, I soon came across a couple of dams.
Taxpayer.
So I positioned my PT, hopped off and onto the dam, and I got to collecting my mandatory tax.
Oh, we might be cooked.
I quickly hopped back on bones and led the beavers away so I could quickly loot the second dam as well. And with that little successful heist done, I returned back to base just before the day came to an end.
Alright, let's make this indie forge. Hello?
Hello.
Who are you? Get out of here. Sweet.
I also repaired my ghillie with the leftover polymer before constructing the industrial forge.
Oh, what can I say, man? I'm just a master builder. I knew it would fit. Oh, that's backwards.
Once I placed down the forge facing me, I could grab all the metal from my other normal forges and bring it over. But that's after getting my head unstuck from the ceiling, of course.
Are you serious? Brother.
So I loaded up Meatball and transported everything over to the new workshop. I then dropped all the metal onto the floor before this happened.
What? How did I die? How did I just die, man?
I ran back and threw all the metal and then lit up the forge before getting my stuff back.
Mate, did I accidentally eat organic polymer? That could have been it.
Anyways, I also repaired my armor and tools before taking a better look in the industrial workshop from above.
Do I add an extra layer on top of this? Because I feel like it looks a little weird with the roof so big and flat. Screw it, let's do it.
So I hopped back on my theory and ran through a few trees to get the wood. I also got some thatch by hand and I started crafting ramps.
Should also craft some canteens while I have this polymer here.
I unlocked the engram and made 3.
Just now realizing the forge sticks out just a little bit. Whatever.
I swear that's just a feature to add more detail and not an oversight on my part. Anywho, I farmed up a bunch more walls and ceilings before getting up on the roof to expand it.
Okay, I think I need to add some more details. It looks a little too blank, but I think it's starting to look better.
I filled in the corners of the roof with the triangle walls and I pondered for a little bit before deciding I'd just go out and look at my thyla again.
Back to looking for thylas and crafted some arrows so I can make sure to kill them. Kill the bad ones.
The first tree kitty I came across was a level 50, meaning it had to go. And on to the next life, that is. Shortly after ending that one, I came across a level 15, which was met with a similar fate. The third thyla that I found was a level 40, and while I was trying to get rid of it, I noticed another one chilling on a tree nearby, so I checked that's level.
Oh, 110? Where did that go? Okay, 110 isn't good, but I haven't found anything better.
So I started constructing the trap while the level 40 kind of just stared at me. I then led that level 40 into the trap thinking it was the level 110.
No, it's not the 110.
It got distracted by a wild pteranodon, so it kind of just ran off into the distance. So I parked Bones up on the rock, and once the low-level thyla ran back up to me, I force-fed it a few stone arrows and chased it down with my pteranodon. Now I just have to find the level 110 again, so I picked up the trap and started looking around. Unfortunately, despite all my best efforts, I was not able to find it again on day 24. However, that was all part of Ark's God's plans as they decided to bless me with this instead. A level 140 ready to be tamed by me. So I quickly slapped down my trap nearby and I shot it off the tree with an arrow. And trapping it was as simple as having it follow me into the trap and placing the last 2 walls down behind it.
Yes, sir.
Now I could start shooting it into the face until it would eventually fall asleep and wake up and proceed to love me.
Oh, and he's out. Alright, gotta get cooked prime meat.
But before getting that, I farmed up a few spikes to keep it safe from the dangers of the redwoods. The last thing I want is to see a terror bird eating my thyla while I'm out hunting for prime meat to tame it. So I fed it some narcotics to keep it snoozing and I flew back home to hop on my Rex and go hunting. And I spotted an alpha carno not too far from home, so I pulled up on it. But things started to head south when a random Rex pulled up on me and started biting my ankles.
Oh my god, I'm about to lose this Rex. You serious?
Luckily, it died, so it was back to a 1v1, which the Carno clearly didn't respect and it tried to dip on me instead. I did not let that slide, however. I chased it down and finished the fight fair and square by repeatedly knocking it into the water, making it virtually impossible for the Carno to fight back. Maybe you should just have a better AI, dude, I don't know. Anyways, I had all the prime meat in the world now, so I crafted up 2 campfires, placed them down next to my old one, and got to cooking. Now, once I had a total of 18 cooked prime meat, I hopped back on Bones and flew back to the thyla. And I gave it the prime and fed it some more narcotics as it was pretty close to waking up. I then stood over it, waiting for it to tame while looking at this fat Diplo getting impaled by my spikes. The thyla tamed on day 25, so I stuffed it into my pocket and I picked up my structures.
Alright, let's get this man a saddle and finally do some splunking. Probably for the Megapithecus artifacts first, since I already have Rexes. That'll definitely be the first boss that I'm fighting.
Back at base, I threw the thyla back out and locked the industrial grill. I already had all the resources to make one, so might as well invest in it and make one now. I also instantly threw some meat on it to cook, and that included a bunch of prime that I had left over from that alpha carno. Anyways, back to the thyla saddle. I unlocked the engram and looked into my smithy to see what I was actually missing. I threw it on the thyla and then gave it a name.
Mr. Kitty. Alright, I don't know.
Now, I also had to level up Mr. Kitty a bit before taking him out to various caves of the island, so I first wanted to get an explorer note. And I ran all the way across to the southern islands back towards the red obelisk. And there, I found multiple notes, including a tech one giving extra experience. I then opened up a green drop with a ring, and that got me some potatoes along with a bunch of random wooden structures that I quickly despawned. With the Thyla stats looking better now, I started running all the way back towards home, and I came across an alpha raptor fighting a couple of sauropods. So I wanted to kill that while I had the experience boost active. But there were a few Ceratosaurus involved in the fight as well, so I had to approach it carefully. I waited for all three of the culprits to swim across to me so then I could fight them in the water. But when the raptor died, I didn't even get the kill for it.
Really? Died to bleeding damage.
Instead of going back to base straight away, I took a little detour to the green obelisk to see if I could find any alpha there, but to no avail. I did, however, though, find an alpha carno in the jungle just in front of my base. But my Thyla's health was not in the best condition right now, so I ran back up the base to force feed it a bunch of raw meat. And I got it up to about 3/4 of its health, and then I ran back out to where I last saw the carno, just to not be able to find it at all. And I still had about 10 minutes of experience boost left, so I was desperately trying to find something to kill. However, that experience boost soon completely expired after I logged back in on day 26, so I made my way back home.
Alrighty, let's make stuff, and I want to get the artifact of the pack. But for that, I also need to make grapples, and then a few extra structures so I can deploy the Thyla in the cave.
I then unlocked the grapple engram, and I made 11 of those. And I also picked up my cryo fridge and crafted up a few electronics and made the extra generator as well. And that was basically everything I need for the cave, so I hopped on Mr. Kitty and headed out. After totally not getting lost for 2 minutes, I found the entrance to the cave, so I ventured inside, but I didn't get too far before I had to cry out my Thyla. I then continued on foot for now, as there aren't any dangerous things trying to eat me here yet. But once I reached the big drop down part of the cave, I slapped down my cryo fridge and the generator, and I waited for 3 eternities before I could finally throw out my Thyla again.
Alright, since this thing has bad melee, we gotta be careful.
I killed a few of the Titanoboas that were chilling on the path ahead, and after looking down, I saw a bunch of other nasty things. So I actually ran out of the cave to form up a few stone arrows, that way I could get rid of them from afar, specifically the Arthros. However, once I came back though, I noticed Mr. Kitty was nowhere to be seen.
Hey guys, I think my Thyla's under the map.
And I was correct. I had to use my powers to peek under the mesh, and there I found Mr. Kitty swimming in the midst of the void.
Dude, this is so stupid.
I had to replace all my structures and waited for the century-long cooldown again before I could throw the Thyla back out and continue exploring the cave. I shot the Arthros that were waiting down there before hopping back onto the Thyla and then sending it.
Alright, chat, I'm going in.
I got surrounded by snakes almost immediately, but they all got clapped, and somehow I only got 2 venom out of all that. Anyways, going deeper into the cave, I got into a smaller scuffle, during which I contracted mega rabies. That, however, is the least of my concern right now though, as when I looked into my inventory, I realized I completely forgot to bring grapples with me. Also, my character was spazzing out really hard, so I had to hit a quick relog. Anyways, my Thyla was still too fat to fit through this choke point, so I had to place my cryo fridge down once again and then wait. After cryoing the Thyla and popping it back out on the other side, I ran through a couple of corridors and I came across another group of Titanoboas, so I farmed them for their venom. Now, I'm getting super close to the artifact, so I healed up Mr. Kitty with a bit of raw meat, and I then fought another horde of cave creatures and climbed back up to the final part of the cave where I could then dismount and go retrieve the artifact of the pack.
Free artifact. Just kidding, that was not free.
And getting out of this cave consisted of me waiting for the cryo timer on the fridge once again and then just running straight out of there. Back on the surface on day 27, I had to wait for the timer once again to actually go back to base. But now with Mr. Kitty out again, I started heading back, but my plans quickly changed when I spotted this Alpha Rex just wandering around the beach.
Oh, hey there. What are the odds I can kill this with the Thyla? I mean, I can make it bleed, but when it steps on me, it does more damage than my bite.
But the bleed damage was really strong on its own, so I kept circling the Rex, breaking its ankles, and then biting its tail.
Probably won't get the XP from this since it's gonna die from bleeding, but I do need the tooth for the Alpha Overseer.
A few bites later, the Rex finally collapsed, dropping the Alpha Rex tooth. And I'm gonna need that trophy later on, and it also dropped a mid-metal hatchet. So I made my way back home and unlocked a trophy wall mount, which I placed on the roof of my house. Now, with a little bit of help from Meatball, I was able to get on top of the roof and display the Rex skull as well.
I want it like more centered.
While also on the topic of base upgrades, I also wanted to make a fridge to keep my spoilables preserved. So I crafted all the necessary electronics and then made one.
Alrighty, let me grind out a bunch of stone foundations for down here, and then let's set up a hatching platform. I gotta start breeding Rexes for this Megapithecus fight, because it's gonna be upon us sooner rather than later.
That being said, I picked the ball and got the farming.
That's a decent amount of stone farmed to get wooden thatch.
I first got all the thatch that I need with my pickaxe and then dropped the few trees with the theory. And in total, I made 37 triangle foundations and I placed them all down around the main platform, including a few regular foundations. Now, one more trip to the forest later, I made the rest of the regular foundations and I finished the hatching area.
Do I bite the bullet and try to tame an anglerfish to farm pearls? I might need to, because I'm going to need a bunch of air conditioners for this hatching area.
I didn't really have any other options though, so I quickly farmed up and crafted a simple angler trap. On day 28, I grabbed a bunch of spoiled meat from Mr. Kitty, and I farmed up a second mortar and pestle so I could produce narcotics at double the speed. So before I go out to get me an angler, I need to stock up on those as the torpor drain on these glowy fish boys is really fast. So that being said, I hopped on the back of my trike and did a little bit of lawn mowing.
I'm also going to have to tame a ichthy first to actually, get around. Having this scuba set is so clutch though.
Anyhow, I queued up a bunch of narcotics to craft, and in the meantime, I gathered the resources to make an ichthy saddle. With the saddle made, I hopped on bones and I flew out to the middle of the ocean, and then equipped my scuba and dove in. The first ichthy eye spyglass was a level 85, which honestly, that's gonna work just fine.
85 isn't bad. Need to get meat for this.
So I flew back home, hopped on Mr. Kitty, and jumped down to kill something for prime meat to tame it.
What, brother? You can't be serious. I gotta tame that.
Yeah, another really high level Rex bullying weak dinos just below my base. I would definitely come back to tame that, but right now I really need to get an angler. So I found the second Rex that was a low level, so I quickly turned that into some meat, raw meat that is, because for some reason it did not drop a single piece of prime meat. Luckily though, there was a low level Diplo taking a bath in the river nearby, so I pieced it up and got more than enough prime meat from it. So I then ran back to my Pteranodon, hopped on it, and flew back out to the ocean. I then used my genius estimation abilities to guess exactly where the ichthy could be and jumped into the water, and I spotted it just ahead of me. However, one feed wasn't enough for this greedy dolphin though, so I had to wait around for a bit, hoping a Megalodon wouldn't eat it in the meantime. Now, speaking of Megalodons, as soon as I jumped back into the water to try and feed the ichthy, one noticed me and started chasing me. But thankfully, the ichthy distanced itself, so I was able to get to it safely and make it mine. I then saddled it up and whistled Bones to follow me, and I swam towards the shore.
So anywhere I can leave this that it'll just be safe? Surely this is safe.
I gave the ichthy some food and a name before heading back home. Back at base, I grabbed all the narcotics, the angler trap, and then the cryo fridge.
Alrighty, let's do this.
I then flew back to Fishy on Meatball, and I then put him in my pocket for safekeeping. I then equipped my scuba and dove into the depths of the island's oceans. Now, I couldn't stay down here for too long as I didn't bring scuba leggings, meaning I was actively freezing to death. And after a bunch of garbage anglers, I finally found one that was semi-decent.
95? That's honestly not bad. Not having trouble finding these things, they just aren't great levels.
I found a red drop at the ocean floor, but I was getting chased by a couple of plussies, so I had to lead them away before snagging the loot inside.
That was terrible. That was not worth risking my life for.
But the quality of the drop was the least of my concern right now. I may have gotten really unlucky with the loot, but instead I was rewarded with this absolute majestic fish.
Oh, that's why we kept it pushing. That's why we kept it. Oh my god. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, the gang at eels was a slight issue, so I first had to drag them away from the level 150 angler. But once they lost sight of me, I quickly swam back around to find the angler once again.
That's the 150.
And as if my luck wasn't at an all-time high already, I also managed to find a really nice and safe spot to tame it at.
Holy clutch taming spot?
So I whistled passive on my ichthy just to be safe, and I got to constructing the cage for the angler.
Alright. Let's go get this guy.
That was easier said than done, however, as the whole angler gang pulled up on me along with the level 150.
Holy.
I led them all into the trap, and once I saw the level 150 was inside, I placed the gate down, locking it in.
Got it, I think.
On day 29, I led the rest of the anglers away so I could tame the 150 in peace.
Hello, gang. How are we feeling?
I first had to take out its friends though, as they would be a slight issue during the tranking process. That level 15 was somehow the only other angler in the trap, but I wasn't complaining, so instead I got back to shooting. Tranks, that is. I had to be careful about how frequently I was shooting the angler, as they do tend to die quite easily.
Sweet. Didn't even get close to dying. What? Must have crazy health or something. Alright, we're gonna let it drain. Should've brought a thyla or something, man. We're gonna let it drain for a little bit, pump a bunch of narcotics up into it, swim up to the surface, try and find a baby dino to kill, and then we'll get prime meat to tame it. I'd prefer to not raw meat tame this.
As planned, I got a bunch of narcotics into the angler, and I rushed up to the surface to see what I could see. I swam close to the shore looking for any unintended dino babies. Okay, that sounded terrible, but you guys know what I'm doing. Swimming down the river, I actually spotted a baby iguanodon, and I just had to park fishy somewhere safe from the piranhas. I really had to hurry up though, so I pulled up to the shore and killed a couple of piranhas. I then made sure more weren't inbound and then ran back out to find the baby iguanodon.
Where's your kid, bro? There it is.
Just like that, I copped a ton of prime meat, so I sprinted right back to fishy and then took off. And that's what you call a proper drive-by right there, fellas. Anyhow, I swam back down to my trap and fed the angler.
Oh, okay, I'm gonna have to sit with this for a bit. Should be fine though.
Yeah, I guess it's good I didn't wait around here for too much longer, as not much of its food has actually drained. But I still had a lot of narcotics though, so I just stuck around and make sure to keep it asleep with its high torpor until it was finally mine.
Pearl jam, too easy. Okay, let me cry this guy, and then while I'm out here, I might as well go farm pearls, dude. How much weight you got? Oh, a ton of weight. Perfect, man. This is actually such a good tame, dude. I'm not trying to be that guy, but this video, this is the best I've ever had, I think. Let's hope it keeps going good.
I swam out to the corner of the ocean where I found a bunch of pearls, but there was also something else that found me.
Oh!
I didn't let those haters get to me though, and I continued farming as if they didn't even exist. And pretty quickly, I was able to amass quite a lot of pearls.
Holy pearls. Such a good investment, man.
But still, it wasn't enough for me. I wanted more.
I want more, and I know I shouldn't.
I swam back down to the ocean and farmed just a few more before deciding I had enough and dipped.
How many pearls? Ooh, 5,000 on the dot?
Anyways, I swam all the way back to shore near my base, and I then ran up to depot all the pearls, and I queued up 300 electronics to craft and then sorted out my inventory. Looking at the air conditioners, I was running a bit low on crystal and poly.
I think we'll fly back to the volcano, farm up a bunch of crystal and obsidian, and just make hard polymer.
But first, I transferred all the metal ingots from my old forges into the fabricator and then smithy. I then picked up Hank the Ank and I flew out to the volcano.
Dude, that Rhinognatha, however you say it, has been stuck in that rock since like the start of this video. It's a level 90. I mean, surely I tame it.
Rhinos are pretty useful considering that they can carry literal Rexes, and since I had a decent level literally stuck near my base, it was just asking to be tamed. And that leads me to while I was flying up to the volcano, I also remember that 145 Rex that I left there, and I still plan on taming that to see if it had better stats than my current Rexes. Anywho, I arrived at the top of the volcano and I got to swinging with Hank. Looking down into the center, I noticed a dead car just laying there in the lava, so I landed next to it and pulled out my grapples, and I then snatched the free Giga Heart.
Sweet. Oh, I got both Giga Hearts that I need for the Alpha Dragon.
And speaking of Gigas, there was also one observing me this whole time on the other side of the volcano. Or, I mean, it looked like it was observing something, at least. Maybe it was staring off into the distance, contemplating its life. It did spawn in a volcano after all. So on day 30, I brought Hank over to some crystal nodes, and I continued farming while also keeping an eye on the Giga. But I also needed obsidian for polymer, so I flew up to the top where I found a bunch of nodes.
Alright. That's good. Let's go back to base.
Now back at base, I also had to move over a bunch of pearls in my storage box as the fabricator was just pretty much full. So I then transferred all the resources into it and I made the first 5 air conditioners. I then also unlocked and crafted up some hard polymer for an extra 2 air conditioners and then lined them all up just below the workshop.
I'll probably add more later. That's good for now though. Let's get to taming that 145, but first I see a blue drop with a ring.
It was filled with some random wooden structures, so I despawned those, but at least I got a random bit of paste and some trank arrows. And I'm actually gonna put those to good use pretty soon. I grabbed my dino gates and I made a new bear trap and then grabbed all the narcotics to turn into more tranks just in case I need them. I then hopped on bones and set out to find that Rex again. But what I laid my eyes on next absolutely shocked me to my core.
What? Hold up. Oh my god, what is my luck? What is my luck? Holy dude. This is actually so clutch. Tell me that's the Rex? Today might be the best day of all time. Oh my god, what is my luck? Actually, I don't even want to say that because I guess this is what happens when you situate yourself where Theries and Rexes spawn literally all the time. So if you think about it, I'm finding all these high levels because I'm a Sigma and I'm smart. Yeah, we're cutting that out.
With the Rex trap now constructed, I flew over to introduce myself. This Rex had a few issues here and there when walking over rocks, but eventually I got it into the trap and locked in. The Rex was now secure, but I didn't start knocking it out just yet as that Theory was still out there and not in a trap. So I need to fix that as soon as possible. I grabbed my stone structures from bones and then flew back and spotted the level 150 and built a trap literally right in front of it. But actually getting it inside the trap was a different story though.
What? You're telling me you can't get up that?
I waited for it to calm down and then landed in the trap to fix it by placing 2 walls down and picking 2 up from a different side. And this time the Theory walked right in and I secured it.
I'm gonna knock this out first. This is gonna take longer to tame.
I then flew back up the base to grab narcotics and arrows and then I returned to start knocking the Theory out. Now, once it was out cold, I flew over to the Rex to give it the similar treatment. When the Rex also fell asleep, I took a quick peek at its stats, and the health was looking promising for a wild level 145. Now, flying back to the Theory, I spotted a raptor, and I wasn't sure whether they actually attack Theories or not, but I didn't feel like finding out, so I just killed it.
Let me get spikes.
I only had 4 laying around, so I grabbed them and then returned back to the Theory, and I adjusted the taming pen in order to protect it from wild things like this.
Whoa, what's your problem, man? I know what your problem is. You're a Trudon.
Anyway, I farmed a few Mayho berries with Bighorn, and I killed a Diplo chilling under my base for Prime, and I then fed the Theory and ran over to the Rex.
Ooh, hello. Oh, 100. Remember, there was that Explore note. Let me go get that.
I found said Explorer note in the jungle just up ahead of me, so I made my way back to kick the Alpha Raptor's butt.
You ain't winning this fight, bro.
While fighting the Raptor, I did notice something that looked like it was attacking my Rex, and also I didn't even get the XP for killing the Raptor as I died to the bleed damage and not Mr. Kitty's bite.
Oh my god, the bleed damage killed it. That's so stupid. It doesn't count for you.
I hate that feature, man. Back to the Rex though. I noticed a Gigantoraptor in the forest nearby, so I packed it up before feeding the Rex and seeing that it did in fact hit it.
It was, yeah, okay. It only lost probably 2 levels. That's annoying. Not the end of the world though.
The Rex tamed on day 31, and looking at its stats, the melee looked like it was a bit better than my other Rexes, but the health turned out to be worse. So anyway, I picked up the trap and threw out the new Rex back at base to compare it to the others.
That's 351 melee. That's 348. This is 10.5 kh. So my best stat is 10.5 khp and 351 melee. Problem is they're both males, which sucks. Meaning I'm gonna have to breed that out.
I first wanted to get the health over to a female, so I bred the Rex with the best health first. I waited for the egg to drop and then stored it away in the fridge for now, as there's still one more tame on the agenda, being an Oviraptor. So I hopped on boats and flew out to the beaches to look for a low level one, and the first one I encountered was a level 90, but soon after that I spotted a level 10.
Perfect.
So I picked up the little guy and carried him back home, and there I bullied him and knocked him out.
And then please tame off 1 egg.
While waiting for that to tame, I threw the fertilized Rex out at the hatchery and then waited for it to pop. Anyways, the Oviraptor now tamed, so I brought him over to the Rexes. Now, the only thing left is to go feed the Theory a bunch of narcotics, but when I returned back, the Oviraptor somehow had gone missing.
Where is my Oviraptor? Did it fall through the map? What kind of a joke is this? Oh no, he's right there.
Yeah, I may or may not have left him on follow, but anyway, he was back at the Rexes now, doing his job like a good boy. Anyways, I then threw another Rex out of the hatchery, and I actually got triplets out of this one.
Please be good. More experience for my Thyla, I guess.
And I also clapped a trespasser Packy that just walked up to my home for some reason, just to get another one to appear right after that.
Who are you?
Anyways, another egg that I had incubating hatched, and this one actually had the good health stat. Unfortunately though, it was a male, so it had to go. I then flew over to the Theory and fed it another 50 narcotics, and I also stopped by a yellow drop that was guarded by a couple of raptors. The loot inside was questionable, but I grabbed some of it regardless and then returned back to base just in time for another Rex egg to drop. But turns out it was just as bad as the rest, so it had to get turned into food, unfortunately.
Alright, well, while I've got so many things going on, I also want to start building the wall. Now, I could just do behemoth gates, but like, I'm trying to make my building look good. I'm trying to make my area look nice. My base look nice. It doesn't exactly look good. So we're just going to do one gate and then like an actual wall. Should look cool. Gonna be a lot of work.
That being said, I picked up ball and I farmed up a bunch of stone, and I also stocked up on thatch before bringing it onto my smithy and unlocking the behemoth gate engram. And I was about to craft it as well, but then I remembered to check on the Theory.
Did I let it wake up?
It no longer appeared on my tracking list, meaning it either woken up, died, or...
No, frick. Oh my god, it tamed. I hope those are good stats. I just had a heart attack. It tamed. I think those are good stats. I don't know.
I cryoed the Theory and brought it back home before hopping on my farming Theory and then dropping a few trees for wood. After getting that, I brought it all into my smithy and finally made the gateway. But to make the actual gate, I once again had to get some more wood, so a quick run to the forest later, I had it crafted. I then also made 16 stone foundations before going out to start constructing. Building continued into day 32, and I now had a rough layout of the walls on each side of the gate, and I was slowly running out of foundations though, so it was back to farming once again. With plenty of extra triangle and regular foundations made, I could get back to sketching out the walls, after getting rid of an uninvited guest, that is.
Perfect. Let's go do the other side. Alright, sweet. Got that foundation laid out.
Before starting to work on actually setting up the walls though, I wanted to do a couple of other things. First being hatch up a few Rexes to finally get a good female. The Oviraptor had collected 6 eggs for me while I was busy, so I threw a couple out first and waited for them to pop. The first baby I claimed was a female and it had the good health stat, but as for the other one, let's just say it wasn't so lucky.
So I need to breed this one with that one to get a perfect breeder. Okay, in the meantime, I want to go get the artifact of the destroyer, which I also need for the monkey boss.
So I grabbed the few necessities being a cryo fridge, generator, and of course, Mr. Kitty.
And let's fly off to Carno Island. Long flight.
Once I finally arrived at the island, I flew straight into the cave with Bones, as leaving him outside would be a death sentence. So I then placed my cryo fridge and generator down at the little water choke point and I waited for the cooldown to pass. Then after throwing out Mr. Kitty, I swam across to the other side where I was immediately greeted by a few bats.
Hello, gang.
I managed to kill them all without contracting their deathly disease, but looking down towards the bottom of the cave, I just had a few more bats waiting for me.
Oh my god. There's a million of them down there.
Now, I could slowly find my way through all the creatures in the cave, going the conventional route, but that sounded a little bit boring and terrible, so instead I decided to be a little bit sneaky. I jumped down a few levels where I alerted a Megalania and a couple of bats. I killed those while the lizard kind of just stared at me menacingly.
What was this? I need Megalania toxin at some point. Oh, I only have 7 tranks. Never mind. I'll be back for you. Don't go anywhere. Can I be sneaky about this?
I leaped off and I landed right on the artifact, so I snatched it unnoticed. However, getting out without getting spotted was a different story.
Well, oh, the heist of the century.
I may have aggroed literally the entire cave on my way out, but I was just too fast for them to keep up, so I got to the water part unharmed.
Screw the cave drops. Blue. I'm out. Just like that. How good am I?
I grabbed my structures, crowed up Mr. Kitty, and then headed back to base. Back at base on day 33, the female Rex had grown up by now, so I whistled it over to the male with the highest melee stat and I started breeding the two. And while waiting for the egg to drop, I went out to gather food for the baby by killing a Rex and a Dodic just below my base. And then once back, I threw out the egg to hatch and then checked its stats.
Oh, bad. Alright, in the meantime, while waiting for more Rex eggs, let's keep working on this.
And by this, I meant the walls of my base, so I hopped on back in my theory again and went out to farm a few things. I unlocked the large wooden wall and I made a few of those, and I then placed them down on one of the sides of the gate, but there was a pretty big issue with them.
Bro, serious? That is annoying.
After a little bit of head scratching, I had an idea to pick up the foundation and place the wall down first and then replace the foundation.
I mean, that does look a lot better. It looks a little weird how it's like meshed together, but do I really care?
It was definitely a better alternative than the having literal gaps in my grand fortification, so to answer that question, no, I do not care. Once I could barely move from all the large walls that I had farmed though, I returned back to place them down. Getting the walls to align properly right next to the triangle foundation hexagons was a bit rough though and required more fiddling.
This is so difficult for no reason.
But eventually I got it because I'm him.
There we go. I'm cooking again. Don't worry.
I was a few walls short of finishing this other side though, so I got back to farming for a bit. And I also wanted to place a second row of walls from the inside to make sure it looks more structurally sound and it's gonna look better overall. But I didn't plan on doing that right now though, but seeing that I farmed up a bunch of extra walls, might as well place them down. So after placing down all those walls, I ran over to my Oviraptor and grabbed all the eggs that he had collected for me and then threw a couple out. And for some reason my luck was just unstoppable. The first egg to pop out brought twins into this world and they were both perfect breeders with the good health and good melee stats.
Perfect female. Give me a perfect male. Oh, I'm too good. This is a perfect male as well.
So I stopped the Rexes from breeding and renamed the babies to Perfect F and Perfect M. I then fed them and named the other male Boss, because he's gonna fight the boss. And I also whistled him to follow me for the imprints so I could see the stats of a fully imprinted Rex.
It's not bad. I don't think it's too bad.
To feed the babies, I killed the Mosshops that had been wandering around my base and I went out on a little hunting spree. On day 34, I grabbed some of the obsidian I had to make artifact pedestals.
I want to get the artifact of the brute, which is in the underwater cave, and then raise my army of Rexes, then get the tributes, and then do the alpha monkey. Easier said than done though, for sure.
Anywho, I grabbed the 3 pedestals and I placed them down on the corner of my railings. And of course, I also had to display the artifacts that I had on them.
Yeah, it looks pretty cool.
Alright, back to the artifacts. Since it's underwater, I'm gonna have to be quick and sneaky to get around as I don't plan on killing anything inside the cave. So anyway, I grabbed my scuba gear, repaired the tank, and grabbed the cryo fridge generator, and I made a few more grapples.
That should be enough.
Now, with everything prepped, I headed out on Bones.
Just gotta be quick. That's all I gotta do.
I spotted a yellow drop with a ring though, so I stopped by to get that, and inside I found a decent decent flak chest piece and a few metal structures, and I also grabbed them so I could demolish them for resources. And now I'm so close enough to my base, so I flew back to drop that stuff off as it was pretty heavy carrying it all around on my Pteranodon.
Actually, I might need this gate. If I ever tame a Giga, I'll just put the stuff away.
Anyways, I headed out once again. And the cave, of course, was on the other side of the map, so it took me a solid minute to get over there. But once I finally did, I was greeted by a very hungry ichthy that robbed me of a bunch of my cooked meat.
Brother.
And I did not let such thievery slide, however, so I put an end to its unfortunate existence. Alright, with the coast now clear, I could slap down my structures and wait. Now, once the cooldown was finally up, I threw out Fishy, put on my scuba, and then dove down into the ocean.
Here we go.
I swam all the way through the cave without having really anything chase me. And before hopping off Fishy, I made sure I was safe, but I quickly realized I wasn't even at the right spot.
Hold up, where am I?
So I hopped back on Fishy and I swam to the other part where I then spotted the artifact.
Well, it wasn't exactly my plan, but that worked.
With the artifact of the brute now secured, I had no more business to do in here anymore, so I swam right back out to the beach. I then grabbed my stuff and flew back to base. That was really easy actually. So once home, I put the third artifact up for display and I moved the perfect breeder Rexes away from the hatcheries so they could start producing more eggs for me. And while those guys did their thing, I hopped on Boss to go out on a killing spree. And I did see an Alpha Rex while I was flying over to that cave, so I wanted to heal Boss up and then take the Alpha down and just see how much I can actually level up its stats. On day 35, I realized I didn't have to go out and kill wild dinos in order to level up my Rexes.
But I don't need to level this thing, I just need to pump out baby Rexes, and I forgot that's the leveling meta. I always forget that.
So I waddled back to base and threw out the 3 eggs my Oviraptor had collected. After naming the babies, I wanted to do a little bit of organizing. So I moved all my old Rexes out of the way. And also the babies were now ready to get imprinted, and one of the females requested kibble though, so that's gonna have to be excluded from the boss fight.
Oh, you're kidding. Oh, I'm just gonna kill that one. Actually, no, I can just use it as a breeder.
So of course, it still had the good stats, so I renamed it to F Breeder. And I also had to get a trough going here, so I unlocked the engram and I flew down to gather a little bit of raw metal. And after smacking up a few trees with my theory, I got all the wood I needed, so I made the 2 troughs. And I also crafted a bunch of ramps to add onto the platform. I then placed one of the troughs right next to my air conditioners and the second one over by the Rexes. I only had a bit of raw meat from them though, so I threw out a couple eggs and waited for them to hatch and then went out to do a little bit of killing.
Send it treasure map, let's go. Where is this? Ooh, other side of the map? Whatever, I'll make a shovel.
With that made, I hopped on Bones and headed out towards the location.
Don't tell me it's in the river. Oh my god.
I jumped in and dug up the chest. The loot sucked, dude. I can't even lie to you guys.
Bruh, that's terrible.
So I flew back to base to continue my fatherly duty of raising up the boss Rexes. I moved the 3 females that grew up next to the male to speed up the process, and I hatched another batch of 3. And as for the grown males, I started lining those up next to the base's wall. But unfortunately, one of the baby Rexes requested kibble again, and this one was a male, so... And while the others grew up, it was time to refill my troughs once again. I returned from the mass killing spree on day 36. And my Oviraptor had collected 7 eggs while I was gone, so I threw out 5 of them to hatch, and once they popped, I got to imprinting. That is for those that didn't have crazy requests at least.
Bruh, 2 cooked fish meat, okay.
I flew down to the river under my base where I spotted a salmon enjoying its day. So I pulled out my hatchet and I pieced it up along with a piranha that pulled up. I then stored the prime fish meat away into my fridge for potential later use, and I cooked up a few pieces of the regular fish meat to feed to the Rexes. And the Rex that was requesting prime meat jerky unfortunately had to go. So after counting my Rexes to see how many more eggs that I actually hatched, I threw out a few more. I also had to go out and get some more raw meat for the troughs though, as the Rexes were absolutely shredding through my supply. And killing all these wild dinos was also good for my hide stocks though, as I'd be needing a ton of it soon for the Rex saddles. Anyhow, I started lining up all the other grown Rexes up at the wall as well. I then grabbed the trough and placed it down under them, and I went out to gather more meat. On day 37, I brought out a few of my female boss Rexes over to the breeding circle so I could get eggs at an even faster rate and start leveling up all the boss Rexes.
Alright, let's get stuff for vaults, man. I need storage.
I was missing polymer, and since I didn't feel like flying across the map, I had to turn some of my paste into hard polymer. And I wasn't exactly rich in the terms of paste right now though, so I'd have to go pay a visit to my good friends that you guys already know.
Let's go get some taxes. Where are the taxpayers?
I basically did a lap around the whole map, and those 2 beaver dams were the only 2 that I could find. Anyhow, I made a bit more polymer and then crafted up 2 vaults.
Only 2 volts. Should be fine.
I then transferred all my stuff from the storage boxes in the meatball, picked them up, and then replaced them with the vaults.
Yeah, it's not a big deal, but yeah, I can still fit. Alright, now let's go find the light shred to tame, because I want to start power leveling my Rexes.
I flew down to the beach and I grabbed the first light shred that I could find. I then brought it back up to my base and started feeding it Mayho berries.
Cody.
Now that I had Cody, I could start leveling up all my Rexes, but I only had 1 Rex saddle right now, and I'm not about to switch it among the Rexes. So instead, I went to start mass crafting the saddles. And the only thing I was missing was fiber, so I hopped on the back of my Theory and tickled up a few bushes around the base, and yeah, I got all the fiber I needed in seconds. Now bringing that back to my smithy, I made 16 Rex saddles in total, and I then distributed them to all my Rexes.
Alrighty, let's start grinding or power leveling these boys.
So the current plan was to get all my Rexes leveled so I could go out and get all the tributes while I heal up. And I'm also yet to tame a Uti, so I'm gonna have to go out and get that as well. But for now, I sacrificed countless Rex babies in the name of progress. I leveled each of the Rexes up to have around 25k health, and then pumped the rest into melee damage. And a lot of the baby Rexes were getting stuck in the foundations and the ground itself, so I had to wait for them to grow up a bit before I could hit them. Really, Arc, fix this, man, this game has been out for way too long. The power leveling continued into day 39.
Alright, all the Rexes have been leveled. They're gonna have to take a while to heal, so let's work on getting the tributes.
Since I'm doing the monkey boss first, I had to get Megalenia Toxin, Megalodon Teeth, Spinocells, Theraclaws, and then Thylaclaws. And I first looked through my vault to see that I already had all the Thylaclaws that I needed from when I was looking to tame Mr. Kitty.
Let's get the Megalodon Teeth. I should be able to kill those pretty easily with these arrows.
With my crossbow loaded up, cryo fridge, and fishy in my pocket, I hopped on boats and flew out to the ocean. I did plan on swimming around on fishy and shooting the sharks, but once I tried to kill one just by myself, it actually worked out just fine. So I continued pulling drive-bys on the Megalodons with my Pteranodon.
Alright, there's the Megalodon Teeth. Let's try and go get the Megalania Toxin now. I'm gonna need shrinks for that. I know there's one in the Devourer cave.
Back at base, I grabbed all the narcotics I had left and then turned a bunch of them into trank arrows. I then cryoed up Mr. Kitty and flew back out to the Carno Island. Flying into the cave, I set up my cryo fridge at the moon pole and I waited for the decade-long cooldown. Now, as you know, once Mr. Kitty was out, I swam through to the other side and jumped down to that same Megalania I encountered last time. I started tranking it out, and since it didn't move an inch, it was safe to say it was stuck on the pillar.
Oh, it's stuck? How clutch is that?
I did attract the attention of a couple of spiders though, but those were easily dealt with pretty quickly. Now, once the Megalania was asleep, I copped the toxin and gave it some raw meat to heal until it wakes up again. And thankfully, there's no shortage of bats to kill in this cave for more raw meat.
Alright, so we got this one going. Let me see if I can't find another one. Problem is, I'm gonna have to go full Doom Slayer down there.
I also spotted a red cave drop waiting for me down there, so I ran down the path and I started biting my way through the bats. I opened the drop, but the loot was pretty underwhelming. I also made it to the bottom of the cave, but I didn't see any Megalania, so I headed back up to the sleeping one. And once it woke up, I got to knocking it out again.
Oh, you have a friend. Perfect.
As it started the torpor run, it crawled right back up the pillar where it fell asleep once again, and I also knocked out its friend.
Don't fall.
Now that they were both asleep, I just had to feed them raw meat to heal them back up and wait for them to wake up once more. And the low-level Megalania woke up first, so I tried to knock it out again, but I say tried because it ran off, and when I tried to follow it, I fell right down to the bottom of the cave.
Oh my god.
And while making my way back up, I realized I don't even have to knock it out again. I could just kill it as I only needed 4 more toxin. Anyways, it is asleep now though, so I grabbed the toxin and granted it eternal peace. And not long after that, the first Megalania also woke up, so I sent that on to the next world. I then swam out of the cave, cryoed up Mr. Kitty, and picked up my stuff, and then headed back home. And the next tribute on the list were 10 Therizino claws, and since I've lived in Theory Capital, that shouldn't be too hard to get all the claws. With 10 Theory Claws now acquired, I returned back to base for the day. And on day 41, I could get right back to hunting, and my next target would be Spinos. I only had 1 out of the 10 sales that I needed.
I'm gonna bring the Thyla and Cryo Fridge and all that stuff, just in case I have to deploy it on the other side of the map to kill a Spino.
So I hopped on the back of Bones and started to fly around the rivers of the island. Even though Spinos are pretty massive theropods, I was having a hard time actually seeing any.
Finally, man. Took forever to find.
Flying down the river, I spotted a second Spino as well, so I set my stuff up on the beach and waited for the cooldown and then threw Mr. Kitty out.
Ah, these stegos are doing my job for me. Back to the lobby, little bro.
With those 2 Spinos executed, I continued exploring around the area around the redwoods on my Thyla, and soon enough, I came across another one.
Where do you think you're going, boy? Finally.
While running through a jungle, I came across not one, but two taxpayer dams right next to one another. And I also saw that the beaver was too busy with the Rex to notice me collecting his fair share of cementing paste.
Bro's fighting for his life and I'm robbing him. Terrible day to be a beaver.
Anyhow, I soon found myself on the northern parts of the map where I spotted a Yudi reminding me that I've actually got to tame one of those. But more importantly, I came across Spino number 4. Now after that, I ran through the rest of the snow not finding anything, but instead I got jumped by a gang of raptors in the jungle.
You ain't killing me, boy.
I pulled out my hatchet and I started swinging while Mr. Kitty took care of the other perpetrators. As much as I had trouble trying to find Spinos on day 41, I couldn't say the same about day 42. I found all 5 of the remaining Spinos pretty close to one another as I was heading back towards base.
Sweet.
Now with all 10 of the Spino cells now in my possession, I could finally head back home. There I fixed my armor that got damaged in the fight, and I then cleared out my inventory of all the rubbish, the taxes, and the hide.
Alright, these boys are still healing. I need to work on taming a Yudi now.
I grabbed the few stone walls that I had in my vault and I went out to farm up the rest of the trap. I then grabbed some stone from Ball and I made the rest of the structures that I needed, plus a large bear trap. I then threw Bones back out and stuffed Mr. Kitty into my back pocket as I very likely would need him in the near future due to the dangerous nature of the snow biome. Now with that all prepared, I almost headed out there, but thankfully I remembered one small detail.
Do this. Go tame a Yudi. Tranks. Those are probably important.
Now that I had the trank arrows that I actually needed, I headed out to the snow. And while flying through the redwoods, I set my sights on a level 60 RGs, and since I'm gonna need some prime meat to tame one, I might as well get it now. I only got 4 pieces of prime meat and they ended up getting eaten by Bones anyway, so I'd have to sacrifice something else once I actually had a Yudi knocked out. But now speaking of Yudis, I had no trouble finding a bunch of them everywhere, but the only issue was that they suck. On a side note though, I came across a yellow drop with a ring, and inside I found some scuba gear and a couple of soups.
Oh, sweet. More scuba.
Anywho, back to Yudis. I found this level 95 hiding out in the forest.
That 95 might be worth.
It wasn't exactly the best level, but definitely worth keeping in the back of my mind while I look for another one.
I just watched a unicorn die. That's tough.
After doing a lap around the hill on day 43, I decided to stick back to the 95, so I started to construct the trap nearby. I left one side open as usual and then shot the Yudi to get its attention.
Holy snipe. Oh, this is so sketch because I have to do this on a Pteranodon.
And now you're about to see exactly why it's so sketchy on the back of a Pteranodon.
Oh.
While my PT was frantically flying around, I noticed the Yudi got stuck in the bear trap, but when I regained control over the bird, it was too late.
Dude.
So now I had to try and get it trapped without a bear trap, which was an infuriating experience. Eventually, I just cryoed my Pteranodon and shot the Yudi on the foot, and in doing so, I also noticed that it somehow got stuck on a rock. So I shot it a bunch of times until it got loose again.
Come here, boy.
I managed to get it inside the trap and then place the doorways down as well, but there was another problem literally walking right on top of my tame.
Is this necessary?
I continued to shoot the Yudi regardless though, and I also slapped down my cryo fridge so it would lose the cooldown in the meantime. Now, once it was knocked out, I placed down my generator and powered it up, and I waited for just a little bit so I could throw Mr. Kitty out. I then found this mammoth that was also a parent of 2 babies not too far away from the Yudi, so I got all the prime meat I'd ever need and then fed the Yudi. I then put Mr. Kitty back into my pocket and threw out Bones and waited for the Yudi to wake up.
I gotta do some leveling on this guy, that's for sure.
That could be sorted pretty easily with the Rex eggs that I had, so I started flying back to base. And on my way back, I stumbled across a yellow drop with a ring, and inside I found an Ascended Scuba Flippers and a pair of flat boots. Now back at base, I sorted out my stuff, and then looked about how much my Rexes had actually healed, and then threw the Yudi out.
Let me make this man a saddle.
I grabbed a few silica pearls from my fabricator and a bit of hide from the vault, and then threw them into the smithy to craft the saddle. I then enabled mating on my Rexes again, and I hopped on the back of one of the boss Rexes to go out and do some killing for raw meat. You see, I was pretty much ready to go out and defeat the first alpha boss being the monkey, but my Rexes were healing way too slowly, so I'm gonna have to do this manually. After getting the first Rex healed on day 44, I returned back to base to power level up my Yudi. So I grabbed a bunch of Rex eggs from the Oviraptor and then threw them all out to hatch. I then petted Cody and proceeded to do unspeakable acts in the name of progress. I also healed up Chicken with the raw meat that I had left over before going out on a little side quest.
I also need to make a bunch more cryopods to transport my army once they finally heal. Boy, are these guys taking a while.
That being said, I made some hard polymer and loaded it up on Meatball with all the necessary resources to craft more cryopods. Then when the polymer was finished crafting, I headed out to the green obelisk to get all those cryos crafted. Now back at base, I continued to force feed my Rexes meat and killing wild creatures for more until the end of the day. I continued healing the Rexes manually on day 45, but I also started to consider getting a Daedon instead.
Can I tame a Daedon, man? I think that might be the move.
So I grabbed my Tranks and a simple trap and then headed out to look for a piggy on Meatball. And soon after arriving at the snow, I spotted a couple of the pigs, but neither of them was good enough, so I continued looking. I also came across a purple drop with a Journeyman Megatherium saddle, but more importantly,
Fire.
the art guides really knew why they were giving me beer though, as I'd sure need some after the long search to go through and not find a single good Daedon.
Can't find a good Daedon to save my life. Dude, my Rexes are gonna be healed by the time I'm home.
As the day was nearing its end, I gave up on looking for a pig entirely and I started heading back home. And sure enough, my Rexes were now almost fully healed by the time I got back, so I grabbed some raw meat and continued the manual healing to finally finish them off. I spent the first half of day 46 just healing up my Rexes and killing innocent creatures for raw meat, and once my army was healed up, I started cryoing them. I also picked up my cryo fridge and cryoed up the UD before hopping on Bones and flying all the way out to the blue obelisk. And during my travel, I came across a yellow drop with a few random metal structures, but I didn't take any of them as they're all pretty much useless to me. Anywho, I finally made it out to the obelisk where I was then greeted by a level 130 Uranus.
What? Of course it's right here where I need to get rid of it.
There was also an Alpha Carno that I had to deal with, so I parked Bones on a small ledge, then threw out a Rex and killed all the creatures nearby before I could start throwing out the rest of the Rexes. Knowing this game now though, I didn't want to take the risk of losing any Rexes to an unintentional mess glitch and other shenanigans, so I waited around for them all to lose the cryo sickness debuff.
Alrighty, while I wait for these boys to wake up, let's go get the tributes. This is gonna take a while.
That being said, I flew back to base and replaced down my cryo fridge, and I grabbed all the tributes and artifacts.
I need to make a cooker for medical brews, man, but I don't think I'll do that before the fight.
And while looking through my vault, I actually noticed that I had a simple pistol which could actually come in handy in the boss arena. So I grabbed some charcoal from my forges and threw that into my mortar and pestles, and I made some spark powder as well before converting it into gunpowder and eventually making the pistol bullets. With my Glock now locked and loaded, I hopped back on Bones and flew out to the obelisk once again. And now I'm basically ready to go and kick this alpha monkey's butt, but all I had to do now is sit and wait for my Rexes to wake up.
Alright, bet. Waking up.
I cryoed up Bones and then hopped on the back of the UD, and now once all the Rexes were awake, I whistled them to the middle of the terminal.
Alrighty, let's go into battle. If I somehow don't beat this dude, there's no way I lose. Come on.
Well, there's only one way for me to find out, so I threw all the tributes and artifacts into the terminal and I started up the Alpha Megapithecus boss.
So neutral?
After teleporting into the arena, I hopped on the back of my UD and whistled all my Rexes off the platform. I then tagged the monkey with the pistol to make it run over to me, and then ran behind my Rexes, roared with courage, and the fight then began.
Perfect. I got like the perfect spot. Take 'em, boys.
The fight was pretty intense, I'm not gonna lie. The boss was dealing quite a bit of damage with the rock throws, but my Rexes kept just biting it non-stop.
Come on. Fully surround him.
I also had to be careful though on the UD as the rocks dished out a ton of damage to it.
Oh! Okay, I gotta watch for that. That rock is killer. My boys are about half health, so is he. He got a few free shots at the beginning of the fight.
It was gonna be a pretty close one, but my Rexes were completely surrounding him by this point.
Oh! Some of my Rexes are low. Come on.
Even though my Rexes were left at a fraction of their health, they pulled through and dropped the monkey without a single casualty.
Yes! Okay, that was, it's a lot closer than I'd like, being honest.
Anyhow, I grabbed my well-earned element and the Alpha Monkey trophy, and I looked through my Rexes to see how they were doing.
These guys still had some health. That was a little rough. Can't lie. Won't lie to you guys. That was a little close. I got nervous for sure.
But what matters is that we did it. The first of the 4 bosses was now slain. I would definitely have to prepare a little bit more for the upcoming ones though. So I crowed up all my Rexes on day 48. And then flew back to base, after grabbing this mid-red drop that I came across. Back at home, I first sorted out all my stuff, and I did a little bit of redecorating by picking up my artifact pedestals and placing down the monkey flag in one of their places instead.
Doing some redecorating.
I then picked up one of my forges and lined up the artifact pedestals in its place. And I also had this fireplace on me that I got from a drop or something. So I grabbed all the charcoal from the forges and then threw that into a vault and picked the rest of them up so I could slap down the fireplace to make this place nice and cozy. I then also threw my Rexes back out so they could heal and rest up after that fight.
Oh, that Rex might be cooked.
Now, with all the Rexes out and sleeping, there was something that I wanted to check out.
Let me see something real quick. This dude is still in a rock. Let me look up how to tame these boys.
A quick consultation with Google later, I realized that the level 90 male would have to die regardless, as I needed something called a Rhinognathia pheromone. I definitely didn't say that right, but to actually get a tamed rhino, I need to find a high level female. So I ran over with Mr. Kitty and gave it a couple of bites before it got unstuck.
Oh, and it's out.
But with a little help from these racers, the rhino finally died. But the racers didn't seem too happy about my existence though, as they then proceeded to choose violence on me, so I had to put them down. But I did get the rhino pheromone though, so I returned back to base to store it in my fridge for the time being.
Alright, I need to start looking for Theries and Megatheriums, because it's obvious these are XR. They're not going to cut it for the brood mother fight. And I need to get good saddles. I think I did get one pre-crafted Megatherium saddle, but it's not great. I'm going to need to get a blueprint.
So back to taming is where I had to go. I repaired my crossbow and stocked up on tranks, and I also grabbed the trap before heading out to look for a high level female Thery. And I basically just flew around the southern islands checking out every Thery until the end of the day. On day 94, I started searching around the center of the map as well, while also looting supply drops in the hopes of finding a saddle blueprint. Since this side of the map seemed to be less populated, with Theries at least, I returned back to the southern islands to continue looking for them there.
All the Theries have disappeared.
And even the area around the green obelisk looked pretty dead, so I decided to fly up a bit north. But on day 50, I finally found what I was looking for, and I didn't even have to ask for help from our gods. Totally not.
All it took was a dino wipe. Who knew?
With the trap built, I lured the Thery inside and locked it in. Well, sort of.
Oh, did I get it? Hold up.
I quickly farmed up another stone wall and I placed it down just to be sure that I actually had it trapped. But I did actually leave my narcotics back at base, but I decided to knock the Thery out regardless and then go get them later. Once the big chicken was asleep, I hopped on the back of Bones and returned back home to grab said narcotics. I actually only had 27 crafted though, so I looked through my dinos grabbing all the spoiled meat that they had and farmed a few narcoberries on my trike. I then threw all that in the mortar and pestles and grabbed some mejo berries and flew back out to the Thery.
Hello.
I shoved 40 narcotics down its throat and then gave it some mejo berries to actually start the taming process. Now, flying back to base, I came across a yellow drop with a ring, and inside I found a decent pair of flat gauntlets and some fur armor and a bunch of metal structures.
That fur would have been nice to have in the monkey fight, but whatever.
Now, back at base, I sorted out my stuff and started spoiling a bunch more meat in my inventory. Now, with that spoiled, I got back to farming, although I'm kinda low-key craving a bit of an upgrade.
And I need a Bronto. Bighorn isn't that bad for farming though, I'm not gonna lie. Just, he's slow.
Anyhow, once all the meat spoiled, I brought it over to my mortar and pestles and I queued up a bunch of narcotics. One thing I forgot to do was to place spikes around the Thery though, so I grabbed a few from my vault and flew back out there to get that sorted. I then fed the Thery a few more extra narcotics before fully surrounding it with spikes.
Alright, Thery is secured. I need to make a chemistry bench, dude. Crafting in mortar and pestles sucks. Do I even have that unlocked? No. Let's go back to base, see what I need. Might have everything for it, being honest.
Back at base, I looked into it, and the only things I was missing was a few electronics and some polymer and then spark powder. And I could craft all the electronics and polymers, so I queued that up, and in the meantime, I grabbed Hank to go out and farm some flint and stone for me.
Man, I need to finish this wall too. It's not looking too good.
But that could wait for now. I made all the spark powder and waited for the polymer to finish crafting. And the Thery's torpor also dropped below half by now, so I rushed back out to feed it again.
Honestly, just gonna sit here and wait for this thing.
So I sat there next to the trap all the way into day 51 until the Thery finally tamed.
Ooh, this actually looks pretty good.
I cryoed it and picked up my structures before returning back to base.
Alright, before I throw this Thery out, let's make up this chemistry bench. Sweet.
I slapped it down next to my generator and then threw the new Thery out for comparison.
7.1k, 330, 7.6k, 365. Okay, so this is really good. This is the stats I need. This one has both the good stats, so I need to get a good male.
I enabled mating on both of them straight away and waited around for the egg, which actually hatched on the ground right below them.
Oh, didn't even know it dropped the egg yet. Nope. Is this worth raising? Nah.
It was a male and it had the good melee, but didn't get the right health stat.
Actually, whatever, I'll raise it.
I farmed up a few berries with Bighorn and gave it to the baby, and soon after that, the Thery egg had also dropped, so I brought that over to the hatchery. And fortunately, that came out with all the good stats, and it was a male too.
Oh, yep, that's a perfect male.
But unfortunately, that also meant the first child had to go, onto the next world, that is.
So this one's gonna have to go. I'm sorry, bro.
I also disabled mating on the parents, and I whistled the old male over to the Rex pile that is useless.
I'm debating. I need to breed these two and then get a imprinted one and see how strong they are and level it. So I might need to do mutations, being honest. That Rex boss fight was pretty close.
I also needed to get my hands on a Theory Saddle blueprint if I wanted to wipe the floor with the Alpha Dragon. So I'm really gonna have to be prepared as possible, which also means medical brews and sweet veggie cakes are a must for my chicken army. But for those, I'm obviously gonna need a cooker, but first I actually want to try and make sap taps so that they could collect sap in the background while I did other things. Pretty soon I came across the first dam, so I introduced myself to the criminals, also known as the beavers.
Hello, I am the IRS. Oh my god.
I brought Bones back closer to me before opening the dam and robbing the beavers. But that wasn't the only dam I came across. This next one had been collecting dust for a while, as it was absolutely loaded with paste.
Holy. Alright, whatever, that should be enough. Wait, how much is a cooker? Interesting.
So I then flew back home to store the fairly earned paste away. Now, step 2 of crafting sap taps was metal, and I was somehow criminally low on it, meaning it was time to put Hank the Ank back to work. So I flew all the way back out to the center of the map with Meatball.
Time to farm fat stacks. Not really excited for it, but I gotta do it.
That being said, I threw Hank back out on day 52 and I got to work.
Got enough metal, I think. Long flight back to base.
On my way back, I spotted a low-level male rhino, so I decided to get rid of it.
Ow. This might have been a mistake.
I flew down to Hank, and together we clapped the rhino for a second pheromone. Now back in my base, I stored that away into my fridge, and I filled up my indie forge with all the metal that I just farmed. The perfect male theory was also an adult by now, so it's time to put him to work. So I cryoed it and then threw it out next to the female. I also remembered to pick up my Rexes that fell down from my base, and now all I have to do is wait for my theories to produce me the next egg. But in the meantime, I got some berries with my trike, and soon enough the first boss fighting theory was born. And as planned, I wanted to raise, imprint, and level this one just to see how powerful they would actually be, so for now I named it Boss Test. I cuddled it for the full imprint, and its health jumped up to 9k and the melee to 437. Anyways, back to the cooker. I had the metal smelting, so now I just had to get some oil and polymer, both of which can be acquired out in the snow. I grabbed my wooden clubs and I made a few more and grabbed some fur to not freeze to death. Unfortunately though, I'm gonna have to make the journey over all the way on Meatball since I don't have any other flyers capable of carrying all those heavy resources. I made it into the snow on day 53 and I was greeted by a blue drop containing some absolutely garbage loot. So after that disappointment, I flew down to the floating ice blocks where I got to mining the oil while also picking up a few silica pearls off the ground.
Alrighty, that should be enough oil. My American addiction has been fed for just a little bit. Time to get organic polymer now.
I dropped a tree and smacked a rock and got some fiber to craft arrows so I could actually kill the penguins, and they were actually a bit hard to find this time. I searched around the backside of the snow, but I didn't see a single group of them.
Man, I might have to farm hard polymer. Not finding a single penguin.
And as I was heading out, I spotted a yellow drop, so I naturally flew over to check it out.
Oh my god, nope.
Not to worry though, as I did find a second yellow drop just on the coast of the Redwoods. And inside I found exactly what I came out here for in the first place.
Far more polymer from this drop.
After finally making it back home, I checked on my theory again and I couldn't help but notice the enormous food stat that it had.
Holy food stat. Oh my god. 19,000?
Anyways, I then sorted out my stuff and grabbed some paste from my smithy so I could go turn it into polymer. But for that, you already know I need obsidian, so I have to go back out to the volcano once again. So of course, I cryoed up Hank and departed on yet another mindless flying session with Meatball. I made it to the top of the volcano on day 54, so I threw out Hank and farmed up a bunch of obsidian. With right about 1600 obsidian acquired, I headed back home where I then queued up all the polymer for the cooker.
Alright, that's crafting. Should have everything for it after this. Might need a bit more paste, I'm not sure.
That can be sorted out pretty easily though, so observe. That should just about be all the paste I needed, so I flew back to finally craft the cooker. I slapped it down next to my chemistry bench, and it's now time to level up my test subject Therizino. So I grabbed up a bunch of Rex eggs and threw them all out around the hatchery, and then pet Cody and started to kill the babies.
I don't know how I feel about this. This guy Loki is not very strong. Mutations might have to be on the horizon. I don't know, I need some time to think on it.
For now, I still had to irrigate the cooker though, so I unlocked the stone water intake and tank. I then crafted one of each and flew down to place the water intake into the river, and I finally placed a tank just outside my workshop.
Wait, okay, it's irrigated. I think it's about time to go out and try and tame a Bronto for better berry harvesting so I can get narcotics and tinto berries for medical brews.
So I grabbed some arrows and then turned them into tranks and headed out to find a good level Bronto. I came across a blue drop while searching on day 55, and as soon as I landed by it to check the loot, it despawned right in front of my face. But I did find another drop shortly after that, and this one was a yellow drop with a ring, and inside I found a decent scuba tank along with some other random garbage.
I have not seen a single Bronto.
After a solid minute of searching later though, I laid my eyes on the first Bronto. It was only a level 50, but honestly, I didn't need anything higher than that.
Screw it, that'll do. I don't care.
I flew up a bit to see if there weren't any other Brontos around just in case, but I didn't see any, so I landed on this little mountain where I could trank it out safely.
Alright, let's go back to base. Get stuff to actually tame this.
I farmed up a handful of Meho berries with Bighorn and then headed back out to the Bronto to feed it. And surprisingly enough, it was actually taming really quickly, so I just sat by it until it woke up. Once it finally did wake up, I gave it a menacing but fitting name.
Aerith.
I put Bareth into my pocket and started flying back home. And I did come across another Rhino, and it was a female, but it was a really bad one at that.
Female level 10. That's terrible.
However, the Rhino really didn't appreciate my smack talk as it decided to pull up on me.
Whoa.
I was just trying to regain a bit of stamina, but it was persistent on attacking me, so I had to deliver the smoke.
Screw it. I'm gonna kill it.
Once it finally died, I could fly back to base in peace and looked into making a saddle for Bareth. I then hopped on the back of my Theory and collected up a bit of fiber, then crafted the Bronto saddle. And you already know I had to put Bareth to the test straight away. I chucked her outside my gate and saddled her up and got to farming. While swinging Bareth's massive tail around on day 56, I managed to attract the attention of a wild Theory.
Oh, it's level 15.
Anyhow, I bashed it into the Shadow Realm and then harvested a few more bushes before transferring everything I have over to my inventory and then cryoing Bareth. And I had so many berries on me that I could barely even move, so I did have to throw some of them away. But back at base, I threw all the Tinto berries into the cooker, and I queued up a bunch more narcotics in the chemistry bench. And soon enough, I had enough to start producing my first batch of medical brews. The Indie Forge had also finished smelting all the metal, so I transferred it over to the fabricator.
Alright, I want to tame a Bezel Bufo, and I want to farm the cementing base better in the swamp cave, and I also need to get the artifact of the immune for the dragon fight.
That being said, I grabbed a simple 1x1 trap from my vault and emptied out my RG's inventory and then headed out to look for a high-level frog. I lived pretty close to the swamp, and a couple of minutes of searching later, I actually came across this level 135. So I swooped down and picked it up and then returned back to my base where I then constructed the 1x1. And Mr. Frog was also just kind enough to walk straight into the trap, saving me the hassle.
Oh, and it's already up.
I of course wanted to get prime meat to tame the frogs, so I ran over to my Rexes, and I wanted to keep leveling up their health as I would most likely use these Rexes for the Alpha Overseer fight, and health was super important for that. So after giving them all their level points, I hopped on the back of one and went out to farm some prime meat, and this unfortunate Theory would be the provider of said prime meat. After feeding the frog, it tamed almost instantly, and I named it Kermit.
I gotta go with the classic, man.
I unlocked the Kermit saddle and enabled mating on my Rexes once again. I then grabbed the rest of the eggs from my Oviraptor as I wanted the power level Kermit as well. I then crafted the saddle and slapped it on Kermit, and then hopped over to the hatchery where I proceeded to do questionable things to the newborn baby Rexes. Yeah, the damage is definitely not great, but I chased all the Rexes down regardless and leveled up Kermit. Now, killing all those baby Rexes yield quite a bit of prime meat, so I stood by the grill for a bit cooking all of it up. Now, I also have to heal up Kermit before going out to the swamp cave, so I force fed it a bunch of meat, and I also went out on my Rex to get more. I also came across a purple drop that had a bunch of meat jerky inside and some ammunition. Now back at base, I healed up Kermit back to full health and stuffed him in my cryopod. On day 57, I was basically ready to go into the swamp cave, so I grabbed some scuba gear and unlocked and crafted the scuba goggles as I needed the whole set to stop the poison damage of the cave. Now with those made, I hopped on the back of Bones and headed out to the redwoods. And while flying through, I may have gotten a bit too close to one of the giant trees that also happened to have a Thyla camping on it, resulting in this happening.
Oh!
This also wasn't ideal as the cave was right ahead of me and the Thyla still wanted a piece of me along with a couple of terror birds.
Of course the cave's right here. Whole gang of redwoods terrorists out here. Okay, when did the change happen that terror birds weirdly flap their wings when running?
Anywho, I let all the redwood hooligans off the edge of a nearby cliff, but their pathfinding led them straight back up to me, so I had to deal with them in a more permanent way.
Really? I'll just finish the job, man. They were level 5 and level 15 and 10. Talking that much smack. Insanity.
Once I got rid of the wannabes, I threw Kermit out into the cave and then scooped it up.
Don't expect to finish this cave. I just want to get some cementing paste. Have it in stock. Tired of going for it when I need it. Rather just have it. Here we go.
Yeah, Kermit was definitely proving himself as a worthwhile investment. Just from the first wave of bugs, I amassed exactly 900 paste, and I even licked a level 250 Aranio to death pretty quickly. I then pushed a bit deeper into the cave and came across a few Titana bows, and they were also no match for Kermit's tongue though.
Oh, got the gang coming. Infinite paste. Oh my god.
Seeing how easily I was able to tear through most of the cave's inhabitants, my confidence grew to the point I considered actually cleaning out the rest of the cave and copying the artifact.
Do I try going for the artifact? I'm mopping this place. Screw it, dude. Might as well. I have the durability to do it.
So I continued advancing forward. And I made sure to kill the annoying leeches in the water before they could latch on to anything, and I also noticed a yellow drop just off to the side.
Crazy jump.
If only the loot inside was as crazy as the jump. Well, the ghillie hood wasn't exactly that bad, honestly.
That actually might be useful in the dragon boss fight.
Anyways, the rest of the cave was pretty barren. I killed a few bugs and hopped through a few corridors, and I soon found myself at the artifact room.
Well, didn't expect to get this, but got the artifact.
Now, with the artifact of the immune secured, it was time to get out of here. But of course, a little extra pace just couldn't hurt, so I aggroed another nation of Meganoras.
Oh, alright. This might be a little sticky. Nah, dude, Kermit is a beast. Mopping this cave, man.
I also spotted another drop, and this time it was a red one. So I carefully made my way over to it while licking all the leeches that I could see. And inside the drop, I found a few tranks and an ascendant torch, which I was definitely excited for.
Bruh.
Now, while on the topic of cave drops, there was one more thing I wanted to try out before leaving the cave.
While I'm in here, dude, I want to try something that worked for me 14, 15 months ago when I first played the island.
So I exited back to the main menu in this corridor, and after I loaded back in, I saw a new red drop appear ahead of me, confirming my little trick still worked.
No way. No way. If you relog, it seems that there will always be a red drop here.
I tried one more time just to make sure that it actually worked consistently, and funnily enough, another red drop had spawned in.
I think I'm gonna have to abuse this once again. Look at that. Look at that armor. Let's go back to base, and then I'm gonna come back with an RG and Kermit, and let's see what I can pull. You never know. Maybe Rex, there he's had a blueprint.
But the art gods clearly heard me say that though, and decided to punish me as I was exiting the cave by crashing my game. And that also meant when I loaded back in, there was another drop waiting for me.
Oh my god, crazy stuff. Let's make a quick trip back to base.
So finally, I made my way out of there and then cryoed up Kermit and headed back home. I then displayed the new artifact on my pedestal and sorted out the loot and grabbed extra scuba. I then hopped on Meatball and flew back out for round 2. I threw Kermit out once again and ran to the spot where I then proceeded to abuse the heck out of this relog glitch. The drop spamming continued into day 58.
Alright, I've decided I'm gonna do this until I get a good Rex Saddle blueprint, so I don't have to tame Megatheriums.
A bit of quote-unquote farming later, I headed out to deposit the loot into my RG, but there was a level 70 Thyla waiting for me once outside, so I had to deal with that. That, or I really just wanted an excuse to test out my new shotgun. But I still didn't have the Rex Saddle blueprint, so back to the grind. A little while later, I finally got the first blueprint, but it wasn't exactly the cheapest.
Oh, ooh, that is expensive. Let's keep going, man. I haven't been doing this too long. I bet I can pull a better one. The armor's also not crazy for how expensive it is. Oh, it's more expensive? Let's keep it pushing. They're getting more expensive. I can't afford these, Ark.
But very shortly after that super expensive Ascendant one, I found this Journeyman 62 armor blueprint, which was considerably cheaper.
Oh, okay. Let's finish with that. With bunch of crafting skill pumped in through a Mind Wave tonic, this is doable.
That being said, I exited the cave and stuffed Kermit back into my pocket just before I got rolled up on by a wild Carno.
Big mistake, bro.
With that beef settled, I hopped on the back of Meatball and flew back to base. And seeing that my Rexes were still breeding, I disabled mating on the male before sorting out my stuff.
Make a hollow scope. It's just a necessity for a pump shotgun.
I also repaired my flak chest piece, and I grabbed a stack of medical brews to keep on me at all times before making the hollow scope for my shoddy. But first, I gotta hook up all my Rexes with the good saddles. So I started that off by making a new smithy specifically for that, and I placed it next to my fireplace. I then brought a bunch of hide and metal into it, and I was also lacking in the fiber department though, so I quickly gathered some of that with my theory.
Okay, now that I'm focusing on taking down the broodmother first, I think once I get new saddles on my Rexes, though he should be strong enough to kill it. But just in case, I'm gonna bring a bunch of shotgun shells because this shotgun is too good not to use. Probably finish it off if it comes to that, but I really hope it doesn't.
I re-enabled mating on the Rexes again as I wanted to level up my army even more, and seeing how close that monkey fight was, I really had to step up my game for the Broodmother.
In the meantime, I probably need to start farming a lot of resources for this saddle. I also need to learn how to make mind wipe tonics.
Yeah, there was still plenty of work ahead of me, getting the Rexes ready again, making all the saddles, the mind wipes, and even finishing off the walls of my base. It was better to start as soon as possible though, so I hopped on the back of one of my Rexes and went out to get a bunch of hide first. And I was also greeted by a purple drop just outside of my gate.
Gonna take a while to farm these saddles.
Yeah, I had to kill countless amounts of creatures just to make 1 or 2 saddles.
Alright, I farmed like 2 saddles worth and I'm already bored. Go do something else. Probably get an artifact.
I killed a few more things while making my way back to base. And once back, I stored all the hide away into my vault, and I actually managed to get a decent amount of it, but definitely not enough for all the Rexes. Anyways, moving on, the next artifact that I actually want to get is the one inside the lava cave.
Let's go do the lava cave since I have good ghillie, and I think I'll just throw my Thyla out in there and be able to walk through it.
So I equipped the best ghillie that I could find and picked up Mr. Kitty and then flew out to the cave, which was thankfully really close to where I live. Now, once inside the cave, I threw out the Thyla and I ran down to kill a bunch of locals. I then proceeded to make my way through the cave, and nothing could really kill me in here as Mr. Kitty was an absolute unit. And soon enough, I arrived at the artifact room, so I jumped over to it.
Artifact of the Massive. You know what else is massive? No. Alright, that was corny.
So corny in fact that the art gods immediately punished me for it. Oh! I did manage to climb right out of the lava, but I died right after that. But thankfully that made my body fall on land instead of having all my stuff stay in the lava.
I clutched so hard.
So I respawned back at base and I looked around to see what dino I could take back into the cave.
What could I take in? Honestly, might take in the frog.
Kermit was a beast after all, so I grabbed a new set of armor and hopped on Kermit and then headed out. Back at the cave on day 60, I made a quick prediction just before heading inside.
Bet you my Thyla is under the map.
Knowing this game, I was very likely to become... But you look at that, the Thyla isn't here, and nor is my body, meaning that it also fell through the ground.
Yep, under the mesh.
So I had to use my dark magical powers once again to try and retrieve the Thyla as well as my stuff. But there is a small issue, and that was the fact that I'm still yet to become proficient at Fire Mastery. In other words, the lava was still painful to swim in.
How am I supposed to get this?
I tried to get down from a few different parts of the cave, but I got set on fire every single time, eventually leading to my death.
I don't know how to get my stuff.
So I respawned close to the cave this time, and I decided to gather all of my inner strength and level up and upgrade my dark magical powers. I literally just typed in set God mode into the console. So I tested out my new and improved strength out on a random tree, and I also ran up to a truck to see if it could do any harm to me.
Perfect.
Now that I can move through space and time freely, I floated down deep into the mesh under the cave, and there I found my ragdolling body descending into the endless void.
Whole gang down here.
And somehow Kermit even ended up down here in the bottomless pit, so I picked him up along with my Thyla, and I then flew up exactly to where the spot I died at. A quick relog later, I was stripped of all my powers once again, and I could return to being a normal human being. Well, if you can even call an art character that. Anyways, I grappled over to the safe side of the cave, and then threw Mr. Kitty back out, and then finally exited the cave. Now, after flying back home, I displayed the new artifact on the second pedestal and stored it on my stuff. Now, looking into the Oviraptor's inventory, quite a decent amount of Rex eggs had been produced while I was gone. So it was about time I got to leveling my Rexes once again.
So they're getting to about 32 to 35k health. That's not bad. If we can crank saddles up to like 80, 90, these things would be pretty strong.
Eventually, I got on the last Rex and leveled it up.
Okay, all my boss Rexes are leveled up even more. They've all got better health. Let's... wait, what are other artifacts? I gotta get the artifact of like clever. Let's do that. I'm honestly, being honest, I'm just pushing off having to grind out for the saddles. I'm dreading doing that, but it needs to be done at some point.
At some point in the future, that is. I crowded up Mr. Kitty and headed on to the next cave that was just located under the volcano. I flew inside and parked the PT at the entrance and then ran in with my Thyla. Other than that, it's a pretty small cave. However, that doesn't mean it wasn't packed full of snakes, spiders, and bats. After clearing out the artifact area of all the nasties, I hopped off my Thyla, then grabbed the artifact and headed out of the cave.
That was pretty easy. What's the last artifact I need? Brain work. Oh, I know. It's the artifact of the hunter. That one will be easy.
So I flew back to base to put the third artifact up for display, and since I was going out to get another one, I grabbed some obsidian and made another pedestal for it. I queued up a few more narcotics and my chemistry bench before heading out to the hunter cave that was also pretty close by. I left my Pteranodon just inside the entrance to keep it safe, and then ran deeper into the cave before throwing Mr. Kitty out. Now, while making my way through the corridors, I came up to one that had these huge mushrooms growing on it, and they actually blocked my Thyla from going any further, so I had to wait for my cryo sickness cooldown.
I'm gonna take my armor off again. I don't want it to get Arthur. This is some very, very prestigious armor.
Anywho, there was another side to this cave right behind me, so I turned around and started heading back that way. And while frantically jumping around the cave, I stumbled into a green drop, but the loot inside was pretty trash. And actually, it was meeting expectations since it was just a green drop. But eventually, I came up to what looked to be the right way to go. But the Thyla was still too fat to fit in there though, so I actually had to turn around and fight the horde of angry locals that I've been dragging along through the entirety of this cave.
Holy, this is World War III.
After clearing all of them out on day 62, I put my armor back on and continued to the artifact room on foot. And the artifact was actually guarded by one single scorpion that I blasted into the next world with my boomstick. I then looked around carefully before yoinking the artifact and legging it back to my Thyla. Now, running out of the cave, I found myself back at the giant mushroom choke point, so I had to resort to violence once more. But after taking care of them, I cryoed up Mr. Kitty and then ran back out to my Pteranodon. Now back at base, I put the fourth artifact on the pedestal and stored a little bit of hide that I had away and looked through to see how much I had in total. Almost 22,000. Honestly, that's not bad at all, but all the blueprints did require just over 3,000 per saddle. So I've still got a lot of farming to do.
Alright, what tributes do I need? Let me look that up. Sarco, so I got 2 Sarco skins, 4 sauropod vertebrates. I got all the Titanobovenom. What about RG? I need, okay. Get to work.
I grabbed some fur armor and hopped on my Pteranodon to head out, but then I noticed a couple of long neck boys straight chilling just under my base, so those quickly became the top priority really fast.
I'm gonna kill these real quick with a Rex, get the hide.
While I was munching on the Diplo though, I noticed someone special swimming around in the river.
Look who it is, Kipper.
I immediately started looking for some fish to kill, and once I spotted one, I used an advanced fishing method by shooting the fish with my boomstick. I then dragged the fish over to Kipper and then fed it.
Kipper.
With Kipper now on my shoulder, I could return back to what I was just doing, murdering. And while I was already out here and on a Rex, I decided to kill a few other things while going back up the base. But now I could actually head out and get all those RG talons. So I flew over to the volcano where all the RGs like to hang out for some reason, and then I proceeded to do multiple drive-bys on them.
Alright, now I need 8 Sarker skins.
So I flew over to the swamp and continued to do my drive-bys. And I also killed a Dinosuchus, which actually does drop Sarker skins when killed.
Oh, these drop Sarker skins. That's so clutch. Oh! Alright, that's all the tributes. Now just saddles. Saddles.
The fat grind for hide I've been putting off now was the next step towards fighting the Broodmother though, so I've got to go out and do that. So back at base, I cryoed up bones and hopped on the back of one of my boss Rexes, and I returned to do the mass killing that I've been dreading. I continued ravaging through the lands into day 63. I was actually clearing out a decent chunk of the map as I soon found myself out by the redwoods. And later on, I even went all around them, clearing anything that looked like it was made out of hide.
Let me get back to base, see how much hide I have in total.
I then threw bones out and cryoed up the Rex and slowly flew all the way back to base while carrying an inhuman amount of hide. But finally, once back at base, I transferred all the hide into the vault and saw that I had a grand total of around 33,000.
Got enough for like 10 saddles. Thought I had more, I'm not gonna lie. Oh, that stuff.
So on to day 64, I grabbed whatever hide that I could find on my Rexes, and I flew out to the center of the map to continue farming for more. At the end of the day, I returned back to base with all the hide, which brought my total up to 42,000.
Man, I can afford like 13 saddles. I'm already sick of farming hide.
As much as I didn't feel like spending another day just roaming around the island on my Rex and killing everything, I still had to do it.
Alright, day 65, another day of hide farming.
And at the end of day 65, I had a total of 53,000 hide.
Alright, I think I have all the hide that I need for all these saddles. Now, hold up, am I gonna have enough metal? Ooh. Oh, I gotta do a metal run. Oh. Alright, let me look up what I need to make mind wipe tonics, so I'm gonna need 2 of those anyways.
I already had some of the ingredients in my fridge, but for now, I decided to stick to the metal run. So I grabbed Hank and flew out to the mountains.
Need to farm these crystals while I'm out here for rare mushrooms.
I returned back to base with around 7.5 thousand metal, and I transferred all of it into my forge. Now, while all that's smelting, I hopped on my farming theory and I ventured out to the nearest swamp where I could farm up a ton of rare mushrooms and fiber in mere seconds. And another thing I need for mine wipes was stimulants, so I grabbed Hank once more to farm up a bit of flint and stone for spark powder. And I also made sure to grab the stim berries and mayho berries. Now once back, I made the stimulant and grabbed all the other ingredients, and I cooked up the 2 mine wipes.
2 mine wipes, please.
I also loaded up my RG with ingots and flew into my base and stored my kit away into the main smithy.
Okay, let me take a mind wipe and start making these saddles.
After resetting my stats, I pumped every single point in the crafting skill and I got to making the saddles.
Let's see how this comes out.
The first saddle came out with only 77 armor and the second was 74, but then the third with 80.
Not gonna lie, they're not as good as I thought they'd be.
I had to go out to get more fiber on day 67 before continuing to make more saddles. After making 12 more saddles, I put them away in the RG to check them out. That 80 armor saddle was somehow the highest one I got, which was a little bit concerning. But anyways, I had to wait around for quite a bit longer for more metal to smelt as well, but eventually I finished crafting the last saddle.
Alright, I think this is the last saddle. Please be good. Well, that's an insult.
Anyway, I mind wiped myself again and set my stats back to normal. I then grabbed all the saddles and hooked up all my Rexes with them.
Did I make one too many saddles?
I did have an extra saddle, so I replaced the trash 62 armor one, and then I got on my Yudi to start whistling the Rexes as it was time to now take on the Broodmother. And thankfully, I lived right next to the green obelisk, so I could just walk my Rexes up there.
Alright, I'm gonna set these guys up in a certain way, because I have a little strategy that I think will help me in this fight.
I had 5 of my Rexes face the north. These 5 would rush at the spider right off the bat and try to keep its aggro while I led the rest of my army right behind the spider so they couldn't take any damage from her attacks. Hopefully. That's the plan anyway. So the other remaining Rexes I lined up facing another direction, that way I could easily whistle them to follow me and hopefully they wouldn't get stuck on one another. With all the Rexes lined up on day 69, I ran back home on my Yudi to grab the artifacts and tributes. But before going back up to the obelisk, I also grabbed whatever charcoal that I had and turned it into gunpowder and to make some shells for my shotgun.
Okay, I think I have everything I need. Let's do this. Okay, so let me walk you guys through the strategy real quick here. So you can see that I have these 5 Rexes lined up facing north. The Broodmother is supposed to spawn in the arena to the north. So basically, I want these guys to get aggroed by the Broodmother, charge in, and then I want to lead the rest of the army fully around the Broodmother to the backside. So these 5 guys are taking all the damage, and these Rexes are biting its butt pretty much, hopefully taking no damage. Now, it's pretty easy to understand on paper, but it's definitely going to be a lot harder to do. So I want to keep these guys on passive, and then these guys on aggressive. So I whistled passive on all of them and then set the 5 front Rexes to aggressive manually. And I also made them to ignore group whistles so I could whistle follow on all of them without having them follow me as well. Alright man, we should be ready to go.
I parked my Yudi in the circle as well and then started the teleport into the Alpha Broodmother arena.
Put it on the ghillie because it's hot in there.
I teleported in, and as planned, the front 5 Rexes were facing the Broodmother, and then they rushed in. And I whistled the rest of the Rexes around the back, and they all started to bite it.
Okay, we do have it surrounded.
But one of the aggressive Rexes decided to bail out mid-fight and fight the tiny spiders instead. And I also had to stand back as my Yudi was taking a ton of damage.
Oh, that thing hits hard. Yeah, I was tanking hits there.
Not too long after that, one of my Rexes actually died before the Broodmother was even down to half of its health. But thankfully, the aggressive Rexes grabbed the aggro once again, saving the majority from the unnecessary hits. However, though, my Yudi was still under attack from all the little spiders. And these guys, they're no joke.
No, my Yudi's gonna die. Not good. Not good.
With the Yudi now dead, this puts me in a really bad situation. So I gotta hop on the back of one of my Rexes and continue the fight. But now my army was losing their buff and the damage started fading, and they also started to take more damage.
These boys are bloody.
I tried my best to keep biting the Broodmother from behind, but my Rexes started to fold one after another.
Come on, not like this.
The Broodmother's health was really low, but I lost an overwhelming majority of my Rexes, meaning we weren't damaging her that much at all.
She's so low, man, but I think we're cooked.
I soon became the last Rex standing, and that didn't last very long either. And I once again got knocked off as I was surrounded by all her minions, so I only managed to get one shot off on her before meeting my inevitable demise.
No, dude. No. Dude, she was like at 1,000 health. It was the Yudi dying, that's what it was. Oh my god. Oh my god, I just lost that. I just lost everything.
So, was that it? All the work I put into my Rexes, and all of it gone to the almighty Broodmother. Is this the end? Am I really destined to fail like this? Nah, I'm not getting flamed by your comments once again. I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna beat this big spider one way or another. And if brute force isn't enough, I'm gonna have to pull out one of my aces. First things first, I had to get a new kit, so I did just that until the end of the day. Kicking things off on day 70, I farmed up a few shotgun shells and then started preparing for a very specific tame that I had in mind.
Alright, the first part of my next plan is to tame a Procoptodon. And now, most of you experienced ARC players probably already know where I'm going with this, but don't worry about it.
I made a few billboards to trap a kangaroo and then went out to look for one.
Now, Procoptodons are pretty rare, but since I'm him, I'm sure I'll be able to find one. And it's gotta be a good one, because it's gonna have to survive in the Broodmother arena.
And while I was out searching for one, I also looted this yellow drop with a ring, and it hooked me up with a really good riding helmet and a whole vault. And it didn't actually take me too long to find what I was looking for.
Oh, I mean, that might work? I don't know, let me keep looking.
Level 70 was not too bad, but I really wanted to try and find something higher. And oh boy, did I come across something just not even 3 minutes later.
Oh, well, what? Oh my god, of course it's a 135. Wait, hold up, I have this for a reason.
My boomstick quickly put the Rex back to sleep, permanently saving the 140 Procoptodon. Now, I just had to get it trapped in the billboards, which I actually managed to do on my third attempt.
Oh, it's already out.
I then quickly farmed up a bunch of spike walls as well to keep it safe before heading back home to grab the rare mushrooms to actually tame it. I returned to the sleeping Procoptodon on day 71 and I waited by it until it woke up. I then brought it home and unlocked the saddle for it.
No, I'm not gonna have Pell. I'm gonna have to fly all the way back up.
But before heading out, I gave it a name.
Bunny. Well, let's go get that pelt.
Anyways, I then flew over to the snow where I killed a couple of mammoths. Now back at base, I finally made the saddle and put it on Bunny, and I then grabbed a bunch of Rex eggs to power level it as well. I leveled its health up as much as possible.
I just straight up Mr. Rex. Dude, this could have been the thing between life and death in that fight. Straight up Mr. Rex. Bruh.
Anywho, I hatched one more batch of Rexes, and killing which brought Bunny's health up to 9.7k. I then went out to gather Tinto berries to make medical brews once again.
Alright, now that we have Coptodon, really the best it can be, I'm crafting some medical brews just for myself here. I now need to get a better shotgun. This one's good, but it can be better, so back to the swamp cave.
So I crowded up Kermit and flew out to the redwoods on Meatball. I headed into the cave on Kermit on day 72, and once again cleared out all the locals before I could start farming the drops.
A lot easier to get a good shotgun last time, apparently. I can do this all day, though. I'm killing that Broodmother. I don't care.
I did find this blueprint though that was slightly better than my existing shotgun.
I can do better.
And the drop after that, I actually found an even better blueprint with 424 damage.
That might be craftable. That is craftable. That's craftable. I'm crafting that. I can get crafting skill on that too and make it even better. Wait, how much durability does it have? Enough.
So with a much better shotgun blueprint now acquired, I could head back home to start working on actually making it. And the swamp cave was also kind enough to hook me up with a ton of cementing paste, so I started turning that into polymer.
Obsidian, metal, paste.
But now there's a lot more farming ahead of me once again. That being said, I made it to the volcano on day 73 and I got to work. After making it back home and looking into my fabricator, I quickly realized it was now time to make a new one for all the polymer that I was about to craft.
I'm gonna make another fabricator, man, or else this is gonna take forever to craft.
Unfortunately though, after transferring all the resources over to the smithy, I was reminded of just how poor I became from crafting all those Rex saddles.
Oh, well, maybe I'm not, because I can't afford it. I gotta farm metal now.
But before heading out, I made space in my existing fabricator and then queued up a bunch of polymer. I then stored the rest of the resources away and flew back out to the mountains to feed my ever-growing addiction for farming metal and because I need it. I flew back home on the early morning of day 74 with just over 8.5 thousand metal, and as soon as just a bit of it smelted, I crafted the second fabricator.
Place this here temporarily. So how many do I need, or how much? About 1,500. Gonna need to farm more paste. I think some more metal, or more obsidian.
Meatball was also starving from all the flying that she had to do, so I grabbed some raw meat from my Rex and fed her before going out on the next farming run. And I once again cleared out the volcano of most of its obsidian. Anyways, back at base, I queued up the remaining polymer, so all I have to get now is cementing paste.
Now I just gotta farm some paste. I think. And by the time I do that, I should have all the metal. Whole lot of grinding for this shotgun, that's for sure.
So I picked up Kermit and flew over to the swamp cave once again.
I forgot scuba. You know what are the odds I can just survive off medical brews? I feel like flying back.
But on day 75, I changed my mind, and instead of risking all my stuff, I decided to just make the trip back home.
Never mind, dude. I thought I grew a pair of balls, but I realized it's just smart to go back instead of scuba.
After grabbing the scuba and making it back to the cave, I kitted up once again and then headed in with Kermit. And the entrance was actually still empty from my previous visit, so I had to go a bit deeper to find the Meganora and the other cave hooligans. And once I had all the paste in the world, I could return back home to make the shotgun.
Okay, everything I need to make it. Now, 2 mind wipes. Gotta get crafting skill.
I already had most of the ingredients around though, so I threw them all into the cooker before going out to farm berries so I could craft the stimulant and narcotics. Lastly, I grabbed a few mayho berries and then got to cooking.
2 more mind wipes. Bang. Please come out better than this. Oh my god, this thing is monstrous. That was definitely worth it. I gotta test this out, man.
Now all I had to do was to farm shotgun shells and all the tributes for the broodmother once again. And yeah, I'm really not looking forward to doing that again, dude. That's gonna be terrible. So before we get enough started, I of course flew down to test my new boomstick out on the local Bronto population.
Surely I'm able to like one-tap this.
Nope.
I guess not, Brontos are just built different. Anyways, it's now time to get started on the grind. So I first went out to farm wood to fill up my forge with, just to have it going in the background. While that slowly burned into charcoal on day 76, I farmed up a bunch of flint and stone for spark powder. And I also made another smithy that I placed right next to the industrial forge, and I loaded it up with some metal and gunpowder so I could start crafting a few shells to go caving with. I then hopped on good old bones and I flew out to the first of the 3 caves housing the artifact with a hunter. And I cleaned out the artifact room with my new shotty, so that's 1 out of 3 artifacts acquired once again. And after exiting the cave, I flew straight over to the artifact of the clever cave that was also a pretty easy walkthrough with the Thylo. Back at base, I displayed my 2 new artifacts, leaving only 1 to collect, being the artifact of the massive. You know what else is massive? Anyways, it's located inside the lava cave, as you guys already probably know. I kept up the bullet and gunpowder production on day 77, but before heading out to the lava cave, I also made a few extra medical brews, and I looked through the tributes in my vault.
So I have only Titanoboa venom, and I need to get everything else, as well as the artifact in the lava cave, which I'm gonna go get right now. Don't have any ghillie to keep me cool, but I've got med brews, and I'm gonna try and be quick. Let's try and not die this time.
As usual, I walked right into the cave on Mr. Kitty and I munched through all the inhabitants, and I also made sure to aggro them before jumping over lava and potentially dying. Now finally, once the coast seemed clear, I grappled over to the artifact and killed the last bat and stole their artifact. And on my way out, I made sure history didn't repeat itself and I cryoed my Thylo.
Not risking this again.
I then made it out of the cave without taking a hot bath, and I flew back to base to throw up the artifact for display. Honestly, that wasn't too bad.
Alright, once I can throw my Thylo out, let's go tribute hunting. I love this shotgun so much. Okay, that's all the sauropod vertebrates. Let's get these RG talons.
A short bit of a bird hunting session later, I also had all the RG talons that I needed on day 78, so I could finally return back home.
Alright, well that's everything collected for the fight now. Just bullets, bullets, bullets.
So anyways, thus began the long but necessary farming session for a ton of shotgun shells. And that actually lasted throughout the rest of days 78, 79, 80, and 81. I just sat at base and crafted shells and farmed all the basic resources required for them.
Well, I've got over 1,000 bullets. I'd like to get to 1,500 or so.
And on day 81, I finally finished crafting up the last few shells. And I also brought this quote-unquote trash Rex with me that grabbed a broodmother's attention so I could do my little strat in peace. And soon the day of reckoning was among us. I loaded up the terminal with all the tributes and I started the Alpha Broodmother fight once again. And as soon as I got teleported into the arena, I hopped on Bunny and jumped up to the rock pillar. My Rex got clapped almost immediately, but I did manage to get up to the position. Well, almost. My Procop was spazzing out a little and the Broodmother's AI was broken since it couldn't actually see me for some reason. I was completely stuck in some invisible wall, so I decided to use my powers once more to free myself from my exile. The spiders then all noticed me at once, so I started running around the arena before jumping up to the pillar once again. I then carefully dismounted Bunny, making sure I wouldn't fall, and then I started blasting the Broodmother.
Well, my mic has been off for about ever, and I'm just now realizing that. This is working. I was stuck in a mesh hole for a little while, but I'm up here now, and this is working. It's very boring, but dude, I'm taking the dub. I don't care. I don't care if it's boring at all. Rather it be boring and easy than stressful and super hard, dude. Like, where I fail and lose everything, including Kipper.
But finally, a few boring minutes later of left clicking the broodmother, it finally succumbed to the pain of countless shotgun pellets and collapsed.
Yes. Well, now I've got a ton of bullets left over, which is actually kind of nice and useful. I'm definitely going to be using those.
Even though the broodmother got clapped, the real loser was the Rex that got killed in here for no reason. I didn't even bother picking up its soul.
Trash. Rip, bro. Well, that was definitely worth it. Even Bunny survived. I went into this thinking Bunny would definitely die. Alright, on to the Alpha Dragon. No idea how I'm going to pull that off.
But that's a future problem for very future me. Anywho, I ported out of the arena and I hopped back to base to sort out my stuff and place the second boss flag down.
Alright, the broodmother now defeated, time to focus on the dragon. You know what I do want though? Some trophy mounts to display the heads.
Before making those though, I hopped on my Theory and had a quick look at its stats.
Hold up, let me see what I can get this Theory's levels up to.
I threw a few Rex eggs out and killed them, and then I pumped the Theory's melee up a bit.
If I can get 21k health, which I have, and then at least 700 melee, I might be able to do the dragon. Well, obviously I have to get veggie cakes and then really good saddles.
I could definitely take down the dragon if I leveled up all the Theories as much as possible, but for that I'd probably need another Oviraptor or two. Anyhow, I ran out to drop a few trees for wood so I could craft the trophy wall mounts, which I then placed down at the workshop.
Yeah, that looks pretty cool. Let's go tame like 2 Oviraptors.
I grabbed a few Rex eggs and I brought over another female from the trash Rex pile to breed. And after picking up a few tranks from the vault, I hopped on the back of Bones and started looking for another Oviraptor.
And where are all the Oviraptors at?
Eventually I spotted one, so I packed up a random Dilo that aggroed to me and knocked out the little fella, and after feeding it I just waited around until it tamed.
Surely this is fine. No, actually I probably should get another one. The amount of Rex eggs I'm gonna need to power level these Theories to where they need to be is gonna be crazy.
But after looking around all these other southern islands for another 15 minutes and not finding a single other Oviraptor, I decided to just cut my losses and return back home. I then threw the new Oviraptor out and punched it closer to my Theories so that they could reproduce the new generation of boss fighting Theories.
Alright, we gotta start raising Theories, and I also need to get stuff going for veggie cakes.
That being said, I unlocked the crop plot engrams and I picked up all to farm up for stone for them. I then loaded up Meatball with fiber and thatch before going out to get wood as well. Then, using all the resources, I crafted a total of 24 large crop plots and a few foundations to place them down on. Next up, I need the seeds for the crops, so I threw out my Bronto and I got to swinging. And once I had plenty of each seed, I ran back home to store them away in my fridge. And I also placed down a row of ceilings in front of the crop plots to make accessing them easier. But now I've got to get to the fertilizer, so I unlocked the toilet engram and I did have to go on a little side quest to gather a bit of raw metal, but after coming back, I finally made the toilet.
Need to place some more air conditioners, dude. It is so hot.
I also slapped the toilet down near the balcony of the workshop, and I then got to doing my business. At first, I was using my buddy Bones to drain my stamina, but it wasn't the most effective way to do so.
Need to find something better to drain the stamina.
So I grabbed a ceiling and a smithy, which I then placed down in the corner of the workshop, and now I could spam jump much faster and produce more fertilizer more efficiently, so I got to it. On day 85, I started seeding and fertilizing some of the crop plots before going back to my poop production duties. So I spent a considerable amount of time performing my questionable fertilizer production technique until I had 2 fertilizer for each crop plot.
Trying to make sure all my crop plots have enough fertilizer. I mean, I think if they just have 2 each, we'll be chilling.
And while I was making the fertilizer, a few crops had already finished growing, so I got to collect the fruits of my labors, or the vegetables of my labor, I should say.
Not a bad yield so far. I'm also gonna need sap taps, which I know I farmed for, but never actually made, so I ended up using the metal on other things. Meaning I gotta farm for that stuff again. Man, I still gotta finish that wall.
I wanted to get metal checked off the list, but I didn't feel like flying all the way out to the volcano, so I opted to visit one of the closer nearby mountains instead.
Right, this should honestly be enough metal for what I need right now.
So I flew back home and threw all that into the forge. In the meantime, I just looked into my cooker to see exactly how much of what I need for veggie cakes.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta get these sap taps up, and then the bee honey, which is actually shouldn't be bad because I plan on taming a bear. And they're really good at farming honey.
But I also had to take a break from all the boring farming and spice things up a bit by going out to the next artifact cave, specifically the one housing the artifact of the Skylord up on the north side of the map. The cave honestly should be a pretty easy walkthrough with my boomstick, and I still had plenty of shells left over, so I hopped on the back of Bones and began the journey to the cave. I arrived at the cave on day 86, so I pulled out my shotgun and began making my way through.
I can already hear them, dude. Hello.
For some reason, my game really didn't like this cave though, and the more I kept going, the more I started stuttering and lagging.
Holy, what is happening? I'm playing on a slideshow.
Even through the lags, I continued deeper into the cave, and soon I entered the artifact room, so I snagged it.
My god, do I have to get out of this cave?
And I slowly but surely lagged my way out of the cave.
I don't know what was up with that. Holy, that was terrible.
Speaking of terrible, I opened a yellow drop on my way back, and it was full of all the wrong saddle blueprints.
Alrighty, that wasn't too bad except for the torrential lag fest. Still don't know what that was about. Artifact looks cool though.
Next up, I brought some metal and cementing paste over to a smithy to make a few sap taps, which I then also had to place down somewhere. So I hopped on the back of Bones and I flew over to the side of the redwoods, where I was promptly greeted by an angry local.
Oh, hello. Back to the lobby. Needed to land for stamina anyways. Bro just dismounted me.
Anywho, I then placed all the sap taps down, and I then flew back to base.
Alright, time to start hatching baby theories.
But before I could do that, I had to get enough food for the babies, so I took Bareth out for a spin once again. Pretty quickly, I had a ton of berries, so I brought them back to fill in my troughs and actually get to raising my fairies. And while the first batch was growing, I flew out to a red drop that I spotted off in the distance, and inside I actually found a sweet veggie cake along with a mind wipe and a couple of other stews. Now back at the crib, I started imprinting the fairies, but the devastating majority of them wanted something that I couldn't provide, so they had to go.
Holy. Worst batch of theories of all time.
At least they served as a little bit of experience for the first boss theory. Anyways, I continued raising more theories until the end of the day.
What is that? 3, 7, 8, 9 total. Few more batches.
And while I was raising the next batch on day 87, I actually got a couple theories with mutations.
Oh, nah. They just look cool. They don't have any good actual mutated stats.
Those two might have not had any good stats, however, this little fella clutched up.
Oh, this one has mutated melee. Do I restart the army? Might as well, dude. I'm gonna need any help. Screw it. We're going over 100 days anyways. Whatever.
Speaking of going over 100 days, yes, this challenge will be 1,000 days in total, meaning some of the maps I can go over 100 days, since there's only 7 of them. And now, since the island has 4 bosses and I decided to beat them all on alpha difficulty, I'm definitely gonna need a few extra days to prepare and actually take down the last couple of bosses. So that being said, I unclaimed all the theories that have been growing and I helped them onto the next world, all in the name of progress.
Alright, so I'm really just gonna have to restart the whole line now though, but dude, I need any help I can get. I cannot fail this dragon boss fight.
I crafted up a few new air conditioners to store their dino eggs in, and I placed them down outside just next to my air conditioners. One of my oviraptors was also hoarding a few metric tons of Rex eggs, so I transferred those over into the new fridges, filling them both up all the way and still having plenty of eggs to spare. And I also brought the old female breeding theory over to the trash dino pile.
I'm just waiting for this to grow up. I'm gonna start breeding them, and then we gotta start grinding for tributes. But these theories are definitely gonna take a while. It don't matter though. I got 300 extra days to spare in this series, but really prefer to not use them. Oh, yeah.
To kill a bit of time, I hopped on one of my remaining Rexes and I went out to kill a few things for raw meat, which I then threw on the grill to cook. Now, soon enough, the theory became an adult, so I whistled it over to the male and began the breeding process once more.
Alright, so let's do some tribute farming now that we got those guys breeding.
After looking through my stuff, I concluded that I still needed to get 8 more Aloe brains, 9 Udi lungs, and 10 Basilo blubber, and then the 2 So tentacles. And somehow I also had exactly 0 Rex arms, so I'm gonna need to get 15 of those as well.
A lot of farming.
And I got right to it by flying out to the snow to kill the Udis first. And I basically flew around like an American drone, and once I actually spotted a Udi, I pulled out my freedom stick and I exercised my Second Amendment rights. This random RG also wanted a piece of me after I harvested the Udi's corpse, so I delivered, of course. I continued hunting the furry Rexes on day 88.
Alright, finally, got all the UD lungs.
While flying back towards base, I turned around to fly over the mountains in search of aloes.
You know what, might as well and try to get the aloe brains while I'm out here. Still need 15 Rex arms. Don't know how I don't have a single one. Oh, it's fighting my spikes. Bruh. Not the smartest, are you? Don't worry, put you out of your misery. Bro, it died in my spikes.
The majority of day 89 was also spent hunting down Rexes and aloes, and also a low-level Rhino as well apparently. Anyways, I then flew back to base to check on the progress with my theories, and the Oviraptor had collected 2 eggs, so I threw them both out to hatch and see whether they had good stats or not.
Nope. Nope.
The next egg I threw out actually brought twins into this world, but they were both female. And I'm looking for a male right now for breeding, but since these did both have the good stats, I kept them alive and renamed them both the Boss.
See what the imprinted stats on these guys are gonna be.
Luckily, it only wanted a berry, so I fed it and then checked the new stats out.
Yeah, pretty good. I mean, only like 11 or 12 points better, but, you know, that extra damage might add up in the boss fight.
One theory egg later, I finally got one that had the good melee and it was a male, so I stopped the parents from breeding and imprinted the babies. Now that those were growing, I could get back to the tribute grind.
Alright, I got an idea now. I gotta get underwater tributes, and I think I'm gonna bring the theory actually, because you can throw it out, kill whatever you need to kill, and then put it in your pocket real quick.
I brought a set of scuba, my dolphin, and then flew out to the ocean. On day 90, I threw Fishy out and I swam down into the depths of the ocean, where I soon came across my first Tuso. And it was an Alpha Tuso.
Oh, I need to kill that.
I had to kill the Alpha Tuso for the tentacles, as well as the eye that I would need for the final boss fight, being the Alpha Overseer. The only problem was though that a number of other large predators in the area, such as the Mosas and Plessies.
Oh, I need to kill that too.
So I decided to just send it and throw out the theory. I then slowly swam down to the Alpha Mosa and I started swinging at it. But Plessy soon pulled up on me and the theory was also losing oxygen very fast. So I did give up on the Mosa, but by that point it was already too late, and as I tried to swim up with the theory, it started drowning, which meant I really couldn't cryo it in time and then it died.
Oh, okay. Overshot that real hard. That thing's barely bloody.
That was a real kick in the nuts, dude. Yeah, I'd have to go back and rethink of a different strategy, as the theories did not have nearly enough oxygen to take down the Mosa in time. So I swam back to shore and crowed up Fishy and then flew back home. I then waited around my theories until they grew up, and when they did, I hopped on the back of one and somehow ended up my game crashing.
I think I crashed. Yeah. Hold up, maybe I get my theory back?
I loaded back in and I did get rolled back just a bit. However, the theory saddle was still in my inventory, meaning it was gone for good.
Nope, theory is still dead.
So I made it back to base once again and threw out a few Rex eggs that has and even my Rex. My theory may have not been strong enough to take down the Mosa, but I still wanted to try it with my Rex. So once the eggs popped, I munched down on them and then put all the levels into oxygen.
That feels so wrong in so many ways that I just upgraded oxygen into a Rex. Screw it though. This is gonna be my way of killing stuff.
I then threw out another batch of eggs, bringing the total oxygen up to 960, which should hopefully be enough to last the whole fight. So I cryoed up my Rex and then flew back out to the beach. But before actually diving down into the ocean, I quickly farmed up a few stone arrows for the crossbow just in case. I then threw out Fishy and swam back out and dove down for round 2. I spotted the Alpha Mosa, threw out my Rex, and got to biting. I was doing about the same amount of damage as the theory, but I could stay underwater for much longer. But I also made sure to keep an eye on my oxygen. As I started to swim back, I actually killed the Alpha Mosa.
Not good, not good. Oh, got it.
I also killed the other Mosa and then dismounted so the Rex would float up on its own much quicker.
Perfect.
Now, I still had to get the Tuso Tentacles and Basilow Blubber, so after a short break, I got right back to it.
This is such a funny way of getting what I need, dude. It works though. It doesn't work bad at all.
I made my way back home to store the tributes I got so far before coming back for more on day 91.
One more Tuso and 5 Basilos. What I need.
I found the first couple of Bassies after a long swim across the map, so I threw up my Rex and dealt with them and their Manta followers. Bassie number 3 was found out in the middle of the northern side. Aside from the sea sausages, I also came across this fella, an Alpha Tuso.
Oh, how would I kill this?
I had to kill at least one of these for its eye, as you need that for the Alpha Tech Cave, but I highly doubted my Rex could actually kill it just because of the amount of health that they actually have.
You see, it'd be really useful to have my own Tuso right now. I don't think this Rex is gonna cut it.
Killing a level 80 Alpha Tuso was definitely no easy task, so for the time, I just returned back to base to do a little bit of research. And I also brought one of the now grown female theories over to breed with the male.
I need to tame a Megalodon since Megalodons do bleed damage. So I really just need health and stamina because the bleed damage always does percentage no matter how much you scale the melee. So I shouldn't have to level it too bad. It's just if I get grabbed, which there is a very high possibility that happens, I'm cooked.
Anyhow, I grabbed a stack of trank arrows and flew back out to the ocean, where I then stuffed Bones back into my pocket and threw out Fishy again. I was still looking for a decent level Megalodon, as I wanted its health and stamina to be high.
You know, I thought it'd be easier to find a high level Megalodon. These things are usually everywhere.
But at least I did find an alpha one, and another one of the alphas I'd have to take down for the Alpha Tech Cave.
Oh, I'm gonna need to kill that.
Thankfully, it was really close to the shore, so I picked up Fishy and I started blasting the alpha shark with my shotgun.
I'm lighting them up.
But when the Megalodon swam off and I tried to follow it, I got ambushed from behind by these big, ugly looking fish, which name I can't even pronounce.
Oh, okay. That was interesting. I did not see that coming at all.
Looking at my tames, bunnies seemed to be the fastest way back, so I hopped on and jumped back to my body, but there was a slight issue with actually getting my stuff though.
Really?
Both the ugly fish and the alpha megalodon were now camping my stuff. I waited around for a bit until they distanced themselves from my stuff, and then I swam down there on Bunny. And I did actually manage to get all my stuff, but actually getting out of the water was a different story.
Oh, what am I doing? I should just brought a Rex or a Theory and thrown in. Oh my god. Bunny's dead now.
After respawning, I grabbed a set of flippers and I got on Mr. Kitty as he could easily deal with those carnivorous fish. Now, back at the crime scene, I saw Bunny was still alive and kicking, so I whistled him back to the beach before going in to fight the fish myself.
God, these things are ugly.
Once I killed one of those stupid looking fish, the other one tried to scurry away, but I didn't let that slide so easily.
Back here, boy. Finally.
I finally grabbed all my stuff and finished off the alpha megalodon. I then grabbed the fins and I can now get back to looking for a megalodon to actually tame.
Let's hope I don't run into any more demon fish.
I swam across the map once again and I finally found an almost decent level megalodon, being this level 95 near Carno Island.
Oh, 95? That could be worth. I'm gonna scout the rest of this bay.
And the rest of the bay was just as garbage as the entire ocean, so I decided to just start tranking the level 95 out.
There we go, finally.
And now that it was asleep, I swam back up to shore where I packed up a Bronto and a Stego for all the prime meat that I need.
Surely this is enough.
I then swam back down to feed the Megalodon, and then I returned back to the beach and waited for it to tame. Now, once it was mine, I whistled it away from the other sharks and cryoed fishy, and then hopped on the back of the Megalodon to go and level it up a little bit.
Alright, so the strat is to just bite it and then get up above the line because it can only go so high.
As soon as I swam down to bite it, it tried to grab me. I kept following it and biting it, dodging its massive pick radius. And I was actually just too quick for it, and everything was going smoothly until it wasn't.
Ooh. Oh. Yep, well, that's GG. Oh.
I quickly grabbed a simple kit consisting of a scuba tank, flipper, and crossbow, and some grapples on day 93. I then hopped on the back of Meatball and flew back out to the ocean. I then jumped off right above my corpse and slowly made my way down to my stuff that was still being guarded by the Alpha Tuso.
This guy's really camping my body.
Once the Tuso swam off to the side, I sent it and dived all the way down there.
I'm cooked. Oh my god, I swam past it. Yep. Back to the lobby.
By some miracle, I actually dodged multiple pick attempts from the squid and actually got my stuff back.
Oh! Go, 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 go! No! Whew. You can't get me. You cannot get me. Come on, come on, come on. Come. Go. Go, 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 go. No way. Oh. Holy heist.
I grappled up to my bird so I could head back home to rethink my strategy.
I don't know how I'm gonna kill an Alpha Tuso, but it's future problem for future me. I gotta go chill at base, man. That was too much. Yellow drop with a ring in my base. Please bring me a Theory Saddle Blueprint.
I may have asked for too much though, as the drop literally despawned as I was getting close to it.
Oh, that's tough.
Anyways, I threw the cryo dinos out again and then sorted out my inventory. I decided I would just take a break from farming tributes, and I decided to get back to raising my Theory army. So I grabbed all the eggs from the Oviraptor and then threw them out the hatch. I also filled up my trough again with the help of Bareth before imprinting the babies, but the ones that didn't have outrageous cravings, that is. I then threw out another batch of eggs before doing a quick head count.
5, 10, 12, 14 theories, I think, right? Yeah, I think 14 boss theories. So like one more batch, as long as these guys all pop out good. Oh, okay, surely this is enough. Okay, yeah, we have enough.
Looking into my trough, I was gonna have to fill it up more frequently as they were absolutely shredding through my supply of berries. So on day 94, I threw out Bareth once again. Most of the theories have also grown up by now, so I just have to start doing the inevitable.
I think it's time I bite the bullet, start leveling these theories.
I had plenty of Rex eggs in stock, so I crafted up a couple of Theory saddles and I started the long process of leveling them up as much as possible.
I think I need like 12 Rex eggs per theory. That might be like the magical numbers.
I spent the rest of day 94 getting every single one of my theories up to the stats that I needed.
Alright, all theories have been leveled. I need to tame a Yudi, get the rest of the tributes, and also get a Theory Saddle Blueprint, which you can only get in the Ice Cave. And they don't they don't drop like ever.
Before going out to do all that, I headed back out to the redwoods to check on my sap taps.
Also gotta make veggie cakes. Forgot about that. Man, this dragon boss fight alone, actually, I'd say you probably do more preparation for the dragon boss fight than you do for the Alpha Overseer. Because you can brute force your way through the Alpha Overseer in Tech Cave, but the dragon, you gotta have some special dinos with special stats.
Anywho, I grappled over and I looted all the sap taps, yielding a total of 198 sap.
That's enough for like just under 50 cakes. That's not terrible, but I need like 4 times that. Interesting. But I swear if each theory has 10 cakes and I get some decent saddles, like there's no way I don't win the fight. Unless I'm dumb and my UD dies straight away again.
Back at base, I stored the sap into the cooker and I started preparing a taming trap for a bear, as I also needed giant bee honey for the cakes. Once that was done, I hopped on the back of Bones and headed out to the redwoods. I didn't need some top of the line high level bear, just something that could get the job done quickly.
Oh, level 5? Come on.
Okay, maybe not level 5 type of mid.
75, that's fine. Let me check out this drop first.
That drop was an utter disappointment, so back to the dire bear. I placed on the trap just in front of it and then I shot it to lure it in. Since I trapped the 2 bears instead of just the level 75, I had to remove one from the trap.
Oh!
For some reason, that bear turned around as soon as I pulled my shotgun out, almost as if it knew what was about to happen.
Come back, I dare you. Leave me alone! You coming?
The 75 bear was also knocked out, so I picked up all the doorways and placed them back down as walls to protect it. Now, in the meantime, I headed back into the redwoods to spot and loot a beehive for some honey, to actually, tame it, because bears eat honey. It's common knowledge.
This is why I'm taming a bee, ladies and gentlemen. So I don't get swarmed, or taming a bear, so I don't get swarmed by bees like that.
Anyway, I then flew back to the bear and fed it. But this was also while a gang of hungry terror birds waited just outside the trap.
I wish you could get in here.
But I had to deal with them sooner or later though, so I landed nearby and I started blasting everything coming my way.
God, how many are you?
Now, with that taken care of, I waited by the bear until it woke up, and once again, I did give it a name.
Eddie.
After cryoing Teddy, I picked up the bear trap and headed back home on day 96.
Alright, let's go back to base, make a bear's saddle, and then I gotta build a little contraption that can allow the bear to get up to the beehives.
Back at base, I made the bear's saddle and I grabbed a bunch of resources to craft the contraption with, and that mostly consisted of pillars and ramps. I also threw out Teddy to saddle him up before going out to the redwoods again to actually start the honey heist.
Time to start the hunt for beehives.
It took me a minute to find the first beehive, but I got there eventually, so I started building up to it.
Time to set up my contraption. It's gonna be a lot of work, but it's worth it in the long run.
With the ramp constructed, I threw out Teddy and swiped the beehive for a grand total of 15 honey.
Yeah, 15 per, pretty good.
I then simply picked up one of my pillars and that grabbed all the structures with it, then cryoed Teddy, and then continued looking for other hives.
Oh, there's 2. And I build them. Oh! Why is he on the ground?
After getting those 2, I found one more hive before going back home and storing all the honey away in my fridge. I prepared a couple of ingredients in the cooker before grabbing all the honey once again and actually crafting the first batch of veggie cakes.
I need more stimulants. Okay, just about 40 cakes, that's not bad. Need 170, 180.
That being said, I still had a bit of farming to do, so I jumped on Bunny and got to work. While collecting my vegetables on day 97, I noticed I forgot to replace the foundations in my hatchery from when I was leveling up my theories. But once I actually grabbed a couple and tried to place them down, I got hit with this message.
What? How is this a supply drop location, dude? I've literally been building here.
But anyways, I continued grinding out for stimulant for a bit before flying back out to the redwoods for more honey. I also made a trip back home to cook up an extra 16 cakes before returning back to grab sap from my taps. Now, by the end of the day, I was up to 71 cakes.
70 cakes so far, so I'm about almost at halfway done.
Day 98 was basically a carbon copy of day 97. I farmed all the necessary ingredients for cakes, putting me up to 158 in total. On day 99, I found myself back in the redwoods, stealing honey once again so I could cook up the last few veggie cakes. I grabbed like 3 hives before coming back as I didn't need a ton of honey anymore. Back at base, I made 15 more cakes and I basically had enough for the fight.
That's 17 dairy cakes. Should be enough, finally.
I stored all the honey away and then threw out Teddy so we could finally rest. Now there's still more artifacts I need to get before I can actually go and take on the dragon. And one of those is the artifact of the strong, hidden deep inside the hard ice cave. The artifact isn't the only thing I need from the cave though, as theory saddle blueprints actually have a very small percent chance of spawning inside the cave drops there. I also did a little bit of research, and apparently eating rare flowers can actually prevent me getting dismounted by a Prolovia, so I kept a stack on me. Honestly, I'm not sure if this is true, but you know, we'll try it out. That being said, I crowed up a couple of my boss theories and then headed out to the cave. I flew right inside and landed just behind the entrance. Now, after putting on my fur, I pulled out my trusty boomstick and ran deeper inside to the cave, where I was soon met with a bit of resistance.
Ran in farther than I thought I was. Rain, they can't get through here.
With those now taken care of, I popped out both of my theories and I began clearing up the path ahead. I also ate one of the rare flowers, which resulted in literally everything aggroing to me, but it did help with the Prolovias.
Maybe the Prolovias just, or the rare flowers just get the Prolovias out of the ground. That makes sense.
That was the idea at least, but when I actually came up to a Prolovia and ate another flower, it didn't really mind, so I just went up to it on foot.
Oh my god.
Anyhow, I continued making my way through the cave with the theories, or at least one of them.
Where's it going?
Going deeper into the cave, I came up on quite the army of wolves.
Oh my god.
I aggroed them all over with my shotgun and then got the swinging. Once they were all cleared out, I slowly came closer as I saw a Prolovia up ahead. However, it seemed to not really care about me.
Peaceful Prolovias?
And it wasn't just the Prolovias, apparently.
Why is everything peaceful?
Not sure what's going on with all the cave creatures, but I carried on deeper into the cave, mostly without fighting. I did get jumped by a bear, but after I killed that, I may have been dismounted briefly, alerting all the wolves as well.
Oh. Oh, it's day 100. Still got a whole lot of work to do though.
Anyhow, I made it into the artifact room, so I clapped the last few locals and then ran up to grab it. Now, with that secured, I crowd up one of my theories so I could start heading out. However, I'm still yet to find a single red drop, and those are the only drops in this whole cave that even have a small chance to actually spawn a good theory saddle blueprint.
Getting the artifact wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it'd be.
I came across a yellow drop inside, which I found a really strong flak leggings blueprint. And I also opened the yellow drop that was close to the entrance, but it was pretty much useless, so I then exited the cave and flew back home. Now back at the crib, I threw my theories out and displayed the final artifact on the pedestal. I also found this Ascendant treasure map somewhere in the cave, so I grabbed my shovel and then headed out to dig it up.
Yeah.
And since I couldn't get a theory saddle from the ice cave, I waited around for a while for the drops to respawn, as good saddles were basically the last thing I'm missing for this dragon fight. On day 101, I grabbed my theories again and flew out to the cave for round 2. This time around, a red drop actually spawned right at the beginning of the cave, and by some absolute miracle, it contained exactly what I was looking for.
Oh my god. Oh. Oh. That is expensive. Oh my god. Oh, but if I craft this, or craft these for my army, there's literally no way that I lose. Oh my god, that's so much. Dude, that's one of these saddles costs a whole metal run. Oh my god. I can't not take this though. Actual insanity.
Well, looks like the amount of farming ahead of me just quadrupled, but at least I had the final missing piece of the puzzle. So that being said, I returned back home to see what I could start working on first.
Alright, dude. I guess the plan is farm as much metal as physically possible, then farm the wood, okay, hold on. I gotta do the math. Can I craft one of these in a smithy, first of all? Surely.
After doing the math, I came to the conclusion that the smithy was just about 1 to 3 slots too short to store all the necessary resources. So I would have to make a replicator in order to even craft these saddles.
Holy grind, bro.
And the replicator alone would set me back a whole 5,000 metal ingots, so I definitely had to start off with that. So I flew out to one of the mountains on day 102, and the massive metal run commenced.
Metal run number 1 out of like 3 million. 15,000. So this is enough for a replicator, but then you know I need a trillion saddles.
So after filling up the forge, it was right back to farming. Metal run number 2 on day 103 yielded 14,000 metal, which was nearly enough to cap the forge.
Alright, that's enough metal for a little while. I'm going insane, but I've done like 10%. Maybe 5 of what I need to do.
And metal was just part 1. I still needed a ton of crystal and polymer on top of that, so back to the volcano it is. Back at base on day 104, I transferred all the resources into the fabricator to see what else I had to farm.
Alright, I just need paste and then a few more pearls, and then we have a replicator.
To get the paste, I of course picked up Kermit and paid a visit to our local swamp cave. Once I returned back home, I grabbed my second fabricator and I started converting the paste into polymer in there.
That's gonna take a while to craft. How's my metal doing? Sweet. Okay, let's make a storage box, and I'm gonna go place my stuff over there next to the obelisk.
On day 105, I finished transporting all the resources to the green obelisk and crafted the almighty replicator.
Sweet.
Now back at base, I had to make a little bit of an expansion to actually place the replicator down, so I grabbed my Dodec to farm a little bit of stone for that. But once I tried to actually expand, I was hit with this message once again.
Brother, this is...
So I exited back to the lobby where I then disabled PvE mode. Now after logging back in, I could place the foundations down, so that seemed to have resolved the issue.
Let's start piling resources into this and see how this is gonna go. Alright, I'm gonna do a metal run, fiber, wood, you know, insane farm. Insane farm for like the next 10 days.
That being said, the big theory saddle farming montage could finally begin.
Alright, man. Massive hide farm on its way. Alright, dude, I've just spent an absurd amount of time farming today. 116. Got pretty much all the metal I need. There's still some smelting in the forge. We've got, I think enough hide for the saddles. This was insane, like 5-6 hours of just hide farming. Here's the metal still smelting, and then I've got fiber in this guy because I was running out of space. I'm gonna need to farm more wood. Like, surely a few theories are good without the saddles, but I'm gonna craft as many as I can, man.
Before I could do that though, I stocked up on even more fiber and wood just to be safe.
All right, man. Let's eat these mind wipes. They're cooking.
Oh my, what were those rolls? Oh my god. 150? 3 in a row? I ran out of wood when I had 15 saddles crafted, so I hopped on the back of the ferry to quickly gather some and finish crafting the rest. On day 117, I finished crafting the final saddle, and looking at all of them, I think I got pretty lucky with my rolls.
Okay, I have the saddles. Just tributes, and I still need to tame a Yudi.
Anyhow, I reset my stats back to normal and then grabbed the saddles and equipped them on all of my theories. As for the tributes, I still needed a couple of Tuso tentacles, 4 Basilo blubber, and all the Rex arms and 1 aloe brain. So I grabbed the Rex and I headed out to get the land tributes first. I was going a bit insane though, as I swear I had already farmed the Rex arms, but I couldn't find them anywhere.
Brother, I can't find anything. I swear I farmed Rex arms.
So I went through all my stuff back at base, but I didn't find anything.
I swear I farmed Rex arms. I'm not crazy.
From the fact that the defendant... am not crazy!
With no Rex arms appearing anywhere in my possession, I was forced to go back out to hunt Rexes on day 118. But I did also get the last aloe brain I needed from the small pack stuck on the volcano.
That's all the aloe brains I need. Now back to Rexes.
Finally, on day 119, I got all the Rex arms, and honestly, I was surprised how difficult it was to actually find these things.
Alright, now I just need to get underwater tributes.
So after flying back home, I opened up one of my vaults to see a pleasant surprise waiting for me.
Oh my god. They're not... I farmed Rex arms. They're not called Rex arms. They're called Tyrannosaurus arms. I just went through that pain for no reason. I now have 38 Tyrannosaurus arms. What a punch in the nuts.
Well, on the bright side, I at least confirmed the fact that I wasn't delusional.
I knew I wasn't tweaking.
Anyhow, I repaired my 2 scuba tanks and then headed back out to the ocean.
Alright, now I just need 1 Tuso.
Now, I pretty much had all the tributes except one that I actually forgot about, and that is the one inside the hard underwater cave. But before going out to retrieve that, I actually wanted to get my hands on a new Yudi though. So after making a stop back at base, I realized that I forgot something else as well.
Oh my god, I cryoed the Rex. I didn't pick up the bag.
A rookie mistake that cost me a flight back across the map again. And better yet, I couldn't even find the bag anywhere.
Alright, I just looked back at the footage and it looks like the bag must be down. There's basically a 0% chance that I find this thing, man.
Yeah, so long story short, the bag entered Narnia and was nowhere to be found, so I'm gonna have to look for a new Tuso. But thankfully though, I did come across another Tuso in record time, and it was only a level 10. Now, with the tentacles in my inventory this time, I returned back home to grab a taming trap for a Yudi. On day 121, I found this perfect piece of furry chicken, which also ended up lagging my game out.
Oh my god. The Yudi is too powerful, dude. Holy.
So after a quick restart, I flew down to construct a trap and then get the Yudi inside.
Come here, boy. Oh! Ooh, that hurt. Sweet.
With the Yudi now unconscious, I grabbed some prime meat off of its dead carno friends and then fed it. And seeing how slowly the Yudi was actually taming, I had to go get more though.
If I kill it in one pump, will it get mad? Yes. Might as well take the whole family. Oh god, that's terrible.
Now, when the Yudi woke up, I named it.
Boss killer.
And I made my way back home to saddle it up and get a few levels for it as well. On day 122, I did a little meat run around the base so I could feed my Yudi and let it heal while I was gone.
Alright, man. So while this heals, we gotta get the last artifact, and I think I've got a plan for it. Basically, I'm gonna try and go in on an Ichthy, get to the artifact chamber, throw out this Rex, kill everything, and then hopefully use the same Ichthy to get out, but just in case, I'm gonna tame another one.
That being said, I prepared some scuba and returned back to the ocean to get the second Ichthy tamed.
Ooh, I didn't know how to be instant taming like that. Might as well tame a few then, dude.
With plenty of dolphins now to spare, I felt pretty good about my escape plan, and I just had to get them all saddled up now.
I think I'm ready to try and do this. What? What I was saying though is I think I'm ready to go and try and get this artifact.
I stored most of my stuff away to keep it safe in case things went south, and I also decided to swim over there on one of the Ichthys. Now, finding the entrance to the cave was pretty simple, so I headed right in. I swam right through without issues, and I found myself in the artifact room. I then carefully peeked around the edge to see it, but then one of the megalodons spotted me, so I had to act quickly. I swam back and forth a couple of times, kite everything away, and then went for the artifact. And after snagging it, I bolted right out of there the same way I came in, and never to come back ever again. Back at base on day 123, I displayed the artifact and grabbed my kit as it was time to finally start preparing for the fight.
Alright, dude. I think it's time to transfer my army to the Red Obelisk.
I cryoed up most of my theories and then flew over to the Red Obelisk to throw them all out on the platform. I then also lined them up in a semicircle before coming back to cryo the rest and force feed my Yudi up to full health. With the Yudi looking healthy on day 124, I cryoed it as well and then grabbed all the cakes.
Don't eat those cakes, little bro.
I also grabbed a couple of medical brews, a couple of soups, shotgun ammo, and of course, the tributes. I then made my way to the Red Obelisk to throw the rest of my dinos out. I was also told that the dragon could set me on fire while I was mounted, so I made sure to bring as many medical brews as I could and some extra armor. I then proceeded to farm up just a few extra medical brews just to have more than 200 on hand.
Alright, man. Let's do this.
Now back at the Red Obelisk, I grabbed one of my theories for a quick little experiment. I got a trike to hit me a few times to see if the theories ate the veggie cakes automatically after taking damage.
Dude, I don't really know why they're not eating it, but maybe when they just lose enough health, they'll eat it. Surely that's how it works.
Anyhow, I distributed the cakes into the theories and then loaded up the terminal with tributes, and it was time to take down this dragon.
Let's do this.
After teleporting into the arena, I whistled all my theories to follow me and then got the dragon's attention. I did eat a couple of fireballs straight away because I was stuck in my theories, but the dragon soon landed, so I sent my army in to piece it up.
I don't think it's doing much damage to them. No, it's not. We're not doing that much damage to it. Shoot. Don't poop, dude. Oh my god, I hate when dinos do that.
I whistled all the theories back to me so they wouldn't fight the dragon in the lava, and they were doing actually pretty good on health so far, but my Yudi ate quite a bit of damage.
Oh! Dude, this thing's gonna die.
With the Yudi on a fraction of its health, I had to be super careful not to get hit anymore. But then the dragon started flying and shooting fireballs once again, so that made that even harder. I had to finish the dragon without a buff now, and to make matters even worse, one of my boss theories gave in.
Ooh, how did that guy die?
We weren't damaging the dragon too fast due to a lot of theories not even being able to hit it, but at least they were surviving pretty strongly. The saddles were definitely worth the grind.
We're almost out of cakes. We might be able to kill it here. We're just not putting out crazy damage.
But then, out of nowhere, my theories started folding left and right.
Ooh, And one goes. Oh, 2, 3. Oh, come on, kill it, kill it. Yes, yes. Got it.
I honestly have no idea how those theories died, as when I looked at the rest of the other theories, they were basically at full health.
Well, it sucks that Yudi died, but whatever, man, we beat it.
So that leaves me with the final boss of this map, being the Alpha Overseer. Anyhow, after teleporting back, I cryoed as many theories as I had cryopods for and flew back home to line them up again so they could heal. I then also displayed the dragon's head on top of the workshop and then placed his flag down.
Wait, dripped out. Alright, man, 2 things left to do in this video. 1, complete this wall. 2, kill the Alpha Overseer and ascend to Scorched Earth.
Yeah, I think the wall upgrades are well overdue.
So I think first, let's knock out this wall, man. This is just sad. Sad I'm letting it get to this point.
So I got right back to work on getting all the basic resources to craft the large walls.
Alright, man, well, the wall is, it's almost finished. I can't bring myself to spend any more time on this. I think I got a little too ambitious with how I wanted to make the design. Anyways, let's start preparing for the Overseer, dude. Not much to it. Raise more theories, make more veggie cakes.
The theories worked really well in the dragon fight thanks to their overpowered saddles, so I also be bringing them to the Overseer arena. But I did have to raise a few new ones to replace the casualties and cook up a new batch of veggie cakes, so I got back to work on that. One thing I'd also need for the Overseer was a tech suit, so I loaded up the replicator with the resources and I went out to farm more crystal and obsidian. I was mainly missing polymers, so once I returned I fired up the replicator and then began mass crafting that. On day 127, I returned back to the ocean in search of black pearls, in the form of oversized squids of course. I did also find an alpha moza though, which works perfectly fine. It just took a solid minute of biting to take down, but it did give me more pearls. And on day 128, I came across this level 5 Alpha Tuso. I still also needed its eye for the Alpha Overseer, so this was the perfect opportunity to acquire it.
2 birds, 1 stone.
And for some reason, it also reset the Rex's oxygen every time it picked it up, making the whole fight that much easier.
Got it.
Now, with the eye secured and plenty of pearls on hand, I could return back to base. Before making the tech suit though, I sacrificed a few Rexes to level up my new theories.
Alright, those bad boys leveled up. Let's go get some obsidian and cementing paste.
And after making it back to base on day 129, I finally made the suit.
On a beach, please, of your finest tech equipment.
I grabbed some scuba and Kermit to go pay a visit to the swamp cave once again since I needed more paste.
Oh, paste farm. Every time I'm shocked about how much paste I get.
Now back at the crib, I queued up even more polymer and started looking at my freedom stick. It could also use some repairs before the final fight.
Repair this. Oh my god, that polymer.
Anyhow, I then made a second set of tech armor and even more polymer to fix the shotgun with. I would also need to farm up a bunch more shells for the Overseer, so I started off by bringing a ton of gunpowder into the replicator and then making bullets. Day 130 started off with a quick metal run. I was currently sitting on about 1,000 shotgun shells, but I still needed more just in case.
Honestly, man, I don't know if I'm gonna refarm veggie cakes. I just don't know if I can bring myself to do that, because I think these theories will do some decent damage, and then if I have like 2,000 shotgun bullets, I can hopefully easily kill the Alpha Overseer.
So that was the plan for now. Farm up another 1,000 shotgun shells for the Overseer and just pray it would be enough. On day 131, I had to go back out to the ocean once again as there was still one more alpha tribute left for me to get, and that would be the alpha lead blubber. And finding one was actually surprisingly easy since they're the size of your mom.
Oh, that was easy. Okay.
Even though it was super enormous, it died relatively quickly, so I grabbed the blubber and then returned back home.
Alright, dude. All the tributes, it's really just bullets, man. Med brews, gonna need a bunch of those. Canteens.
So until the end of day 132, I did just that. I made shotgun shells and farmed more medical brews on repeat. On day 133, I returned back out with my taming trap to the snow to get me another Uranus. I can't keep these things alive, dude. This is crazy. The UD tamed on day 134, so I brought it back home to get it saddled and leveled. I then also did a meat run around the base for food to heal it.
Wait, okay, that's finally good to go. That took a while.
My theories also healed up by now, so I cryoed those as well. On day 135, I farmed up a few extra medical brews and I started packing as it was time to go out to the volcano and get ready for the final battle. I grabbed the alpha boss heads, the tributes, and I said my goodbyes to my sweet home.
Take one last good look at the base. It looks a little worse for wear. That wall looks kind of bad, but I don't care, man. Day 135. 35 days over. Ho, whatever. I'm gonna kill the Alpha Overseer.
I flew up to the volcano and I started throwing out my tames.
So I've done stuff like this before. You just have each theory follow the one in front of it, and it makes it a lot easier navigating them through the actual lava cave, tech cave, whatever you want to call it. You should walk in a pretty good line here. Should. What is that guy doing? Alright, man, they're lined up about as best as they can be. I think it's time to get in there, dude. Let's do this.
That being said, I walked through the front door, the Theory conga line, ate a bunch of soups, and I loaded up the terminal.
Alright, man. Let's do this.
As the tech gate opened, I hopped on the first tickle chicken and I began the descent into hell. With my first 2 theories up front, I brought the rest of the gang inside.
Alright, Meatball. It's been real, dude. You've definitely carried this 100 days. You're under the mesh. Okay. I'm just telling you.
Except Meatball was not the only thing under the mesh.
Oh my god. They despawned. They despawned. I love this game so much. Okay, well, I just lost half my army, but we're gonna play the cards I've dealt. Except I am going to spawn bullets and shotgun bullets. It's just like, you know, that's... I got done so dirty by that. Can't believe I didn't think about that.
But that's not really my fault, more of an arc issue. So I pulled out my magic top hat and I pulled a bunch of shotgun shells out of thin air.
Alright, there we go. Pretty much same amount of bullets. Oh, I have a time limit? That's new. Usually it's single player, you don't have a time limit. Okay, well, I did not know that. We gotta be quick.
The devastating majority of my army may have gotten sent to the back rooms, but so did a lot of the inhabitants of the tech cave, so it was a pretty peaceful walkthrough, until it wasn't. Once I got to the end, I shot the Giga waiting for us there, sending it straight into the lava. The improved AI and pathfinding update clearly missed this guy. Now, the rest of the dinos in the cave were pretty chill, to be honest. I mean, they kind of just let me walk right by. But unfortunately, I didn't have much of an army left to actually navigate around them.
3 Theories and a Rex into Udy. Nice.
Anyways, I walked up to the platform and I started teleporting into the final arena.
Good thing I have 2 sets of tech. I think I'm literally just gonna have to whistle aggressive, get in my tech suit, and just start blasting it. My shotgun just deals too much damage. I would check out this hall if I didn't have a timer. I've never seen this on Ascended.
Since I was on a tight schedule, I walked right on through this whole place and straight into the Overseer's domain.
Here we go.
I chugged all the soups once again, put on my tech, and then rushed into battle. I whistled attack on the Overseer and then started blasting.
Oh my god. Hold up. This shotgun's low-key cooking it.
I also had to make sure to keep destroying these drones as they could actually damage me and my tech suit. Soon the Overseer transformed into the monkey and it actually almost ended my entire career by hitting me with this insane snipe on me.
Oh my god!
I was left with just a fraction of my health, so I quickly landed far away to chug med brews. And thankfully my dinos were keeping it occupied while I tried to heal. But the extreme cold in the arena made it nearly impossible.
Got an idea, I just need this to die.
Once it was back to its default form though, I hopped on the back of one of my theories and quickly swapped back to my fur armor and started healing that way. I had to avoid the beams to not get dismounted, but I did manage to slowly get back up to health.
Dude, I did not know the monkey could throw a rock vertical, hence why I cheered when I realized I got him.
The next phase of the Overseer was the Dragon. My teams by now were getting absolutely cooked, and that included the theory that I was running around on. Now it was all or nothing, just me and a tech suit against the Alpha Overseer.
It's not over. Yo, where? There goes the last theory. It's only me.
Looking at my tech, it was a bit roughed up, so I'd had to make sure to take down all the drones while blasting the Dragon as well. The Dragon took an unholy amount of shotgun shells to die, but it did eventually transform back into the default Overseer. But then it turned into the Spider as well, but that died relatively quickly though. Now, while it was transforming, I flew across to the other side of the arena to swap out my tech suit for the fresh set as it was basically on life support now. The Overseer was also down to half health, so I kept up the pressure, and whenever it started spawning more things, I'd use that as a window of opportunity to heal and then take out the drones. And after a while, it transformed back into the Dragon again, which is the worst of the 3, so a long session of blasting commenced.
Is the armor at? Okay. I literally just have to focus it. I can't even go for the drones.
I now only had 2 minutes left on the clock. The odds were stacked heavily against me, but I did not give up. But then, this happened.
Is it transforming? Oh, well, 5 transformations. That's how it ends. That's how it ends. 5 transformations. I don't even, dude, my whole army falls under the map. It's not like I can just respawn that in. If I have 5 more minutes, I could kill this thing.
My heart rate was raising by the second as I watched the seconds on the clock tick away and the boss was still in broodmother mode. And then it hit 0.
Oh my god, no, hold up. Why haven't I died? Why haven't I died? The timer didn't work. This is salvageable.
With my hope restored, I got rid of the drones and continued pelting the boss till it turned back to the Overseer. I popped another free curry and I was about to go shoot the Overseer again, but then it transformed right in front of me.
Oh my god. Oh, but it has less health? This is insane. 6 transformations?
This time, I made sure not to get hit by another rock and soon it was back to normal.
I hear the dragon. Oh my god. 7 transformations, guys. 7. Their ability's fine. I can do this all day. I can do this all day. Your timer was just a facade, dude. It wasn't real.
And that was not the last transformation either. After I got rid of that, it turned back into the monkey yet again.
Not give me a 9.
The Overseer now is on its last legs, and it started spawning in more enemies as a last-ditch effort of getting rid of me. But it was far too late as I, Granty, am inevitable.
Yes! 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 Oh my god. Oh my god, dude. Did it, bro.
All of the island's bosses now defeated on alpha difficulty. Through all the challenges, the broken game glitches, and other shenanigans, I did it. I beat the island from the beach to the top. Scorched Earth, I'm coming for you next. Also, you guys better respect me in my comments now.